Yo, what's going on, guys? Just when I thought, it couldn't get any worse. Just when I thought, you know, I thought these guys were bad, and it's like they just, it's insane. It's actually just insane. So how are we doing today? I know I'm streaming at a later time than usual. This is... oh my god. Yo, what's up, printer? Mikey at the Diddy party? No, that's not that bad, but it's like, I thought the whole like thing with Smash Factor. Did he forget? Oh, is that the joke? The Diddy party? Did he forget? Like, it's insane how he's just... The guys say hi? Oh, it's Ben. Look at Ben. What an idiot. Nah, just kidding, Ben. He forgot. Let me turn the music down. Alright. Did he do it? Yo, what's up, mildly OCD? These TOs just play these mental gymnastics. They need to grow up. Yeah, it's... I was genuinely, like, dumbfounded by, like, the response Mikey gave to what we're about to talk about. Is this the prelude to Sus Sunday coming back? You never know. You never know. Alright, let's get into this. So basically, Hacks made this write-up where he once again pleads for an unban, which is what he's been doing for, or at least for a lighter sentence than what he currently has. Because personally, I think a permanent ban, like that's just dumb. Like, never ever, and like he's not able to appeal it. They're not listening to any of his appeals. I think that's just overkill, considering what the infraction is. Like, permanent ban. You should never be allowed to play ever again. Yeah, that's just dumb. So he does this whole write-up, and in it he mentions... okay, so he just talks about the infractions. Just goes over basically everything he's been saying for the past few months, and he noted that he spoke with the cheat, like, after he dropped some of his videos in the summer of 2021. I think he dropped one more after this. Ooh, let me actually... I forgot a document to add to the docket. Hold up, where is it? No, this isn't it. It's one more document that I forgot to... Here it is. Alright. So we'll put this somewhere here. Alright, so in this tweet, or in this document, he shows how he, like, discussed things with Mikey. He dropped one more video after this. Just mentioned that there were yada yada. They discussed his case. And then case. Yada yada. Unfortunately, I did not get a response to this message. So this is in 2022 now. He reached out to discuss things, like see how the case was going. It was 1 year, like a little bit over a year after his first video, but still like the following year, the following summer, from when everything went down. Because I think he dropped his third video in August of 2021, and then like a appeal video in like September. So if you consider all those like as a collective, then his latest offense, I guess you could say, was in September 2021. But this is just basically a year later. He's trying to reach out, and there's been no response. Like, no response, so he says, yo, Mikey, you there? Hey, Mikey, been a while. And this is like a month later. He says this, just checking in. Another month later, says, hey, just checking. Later that month, do you have a few minutes? Just trying to reach out. And this is... Oh, this is even a month. This is over a year later. This is 2023. So he was unbanned in 2023 from NYC Melee at this time, right? And he's trying to contact, to reach out, be like, hey, can we discuss things? Can we discuss where my standing is? Because keep in mind, Mikey made this document where he like justifies the TO's decisions to ban hacks. Like, he was the TO that was the most like publicly outspoken in favor of the ban. Now granted, we're gonna cover this later, but he's not like the head of the like any sort of TO panel or anything like that. Like, he's not in charge of, he doesn't have like influence over all the events. But he did write this document, so obviously he's going to get I guess the burden of being that sort of like leading figure when it comes to the hacks ban, because again, he's the one that's publicly speaking out against hacks and justifying the ban. But anyways, he's trying to reach out, be like, hey, can we talk? There was no response when he tried to reach out privately. Now, why is this important? Well, it's because, so here's Willie P's document, right? He mentioned, where is it? So he mentions here that, like, is it here? Where is it? One of these videos, one of his videos, like the Big House one, where is it? Where he talks about Big House. Hacks' video before Big House by itself violated at least one of the clauses. We did not want to ban him for that though, and after seeing his apology, even though it wasn't a strong one, yada yada yada, the power and effect of his actions, intentional or not, and would lead him not to repeat that mistake. Before that video and afterwards, many parties tried to convince Hacks to either not post his videos publicly and instead directly reach out to major TOs, or at the very least run it by someone first to make sure it didn't violate terms and just do a better job of helping his case. This is the problem, is that they're telling him, hey, don't post these public appeals because Leffen gets harassed whenever he talks about the case, right? I think there's another moment later on where he just mentions that. These clauses were written because it had been shown repeatedly with Hacks' initial videos and their re-releases that the public backlash from his toxic fanbase was proving threatening and harmful every time he released something. Death threats were thrown in public and in private DMs, stalking, etc. I do not believe for a moment Hacks encouraged this type of behavior, but whether intentional or not, when your consistent actions have consistent consequences, it's up to you to correct that. So basically they're saying that, hey, whenever he posts about his ban, people harass like Leffen, the TOs, yada yada yada, because he makes these public videos. So they want him to reach out privately to these TOs to discuss the ban. This is what happens when he reaches out privately. He gets ghosted by Mikey. Now, I'm not going to speak for other TOs, or like say that this happened with other TOs, because that's not the case. I know Willie P tried to talk to him this year. But like here, he's trying to reach out privately to Mikey, and Mikey just doesn't respond. And that's part of the reason why he he's making these videos. And even when he's appealing to other TOs and they ban him, it's like all throughout that year. He was banned from Genesis, banned from Big House, The Last Shine, banned from all these big events, despite being unbanned from his local scene. So even... it's like he's still banned from all this stuff. Reaching out privately is not working, so he's gonna try to appeal publicly. I don't think that's unreasonable. And this is specifically, I'm speaking specifically in regards to like his Big House video and his January ban appeal video. Like, I don't think it's unreasonable for him to want to appeal his ban publicly when they're acting like this in private. Especially like Mikey here, who's not even like responding. Yeah, I think here, he mentioned, where is it? Does Mikey talk about it in this document? That, whenever he posts about Leffen, that he gets... where is it? But yeah, that's basically the gist of it, is that they tell him to appeal the ban privately, but they either don't respond or they don't unban him, so it's not working. So I understand why he'd want to do this stuff publicly. Then Mikey, in response to these DMs saying like, or these screenshots of him ghosting hacks, which I think is unprofessional, he responds with this, where he just says, did he like forget? And he, where is the... So he says, it depends on what... So this is back during, like, the initial ban. He says, it depends on what happens going forward. It may extend to permanent, or it may come to an end, dependent on Hax's behavior. The TOs who agreed to this aren't a governing body, so there is no formal appeal process associated with this. TOs may have varying criteria for an unban. And then he says here, Hax has persistently tried to discuss his ban with me and other TOs. I personally haven't spoken with him, despite his numerous attempts to contact me on Discord, where I blocked him. You blocked him for this. Just trying to reach out to talk about it unban. Why exactly? So he says, I believe there is nothing for us to discuss. I do not have final say on any ban decisions for any tournaments except Smash Camp. And again, I do not want to give Hax or anyone the impression that I am primarily responsible for his ban, when dozens of other organizers signed on to it. I believe the permanent ban is the correct decision, and that decision has been clearly communicated to it. I mean, it wasn't communicated here. Did you just change your mind, like, afterwards? Or... I don't know. So basically, his argument is that I'm not God, basically. I don't control these TOs. Like, if you want to get unbanned from the community, you have to take it up with the individual TOs, because we're not a unified, organized, like, panel that can deliberate these cases, despite the fact that they were all able to come together to ban him. He's saying that, hey, we're not organized enough to... we don't have a governing body. We're not organized enough to formally appeal... for him to formally appeal the ban. To ban him, yeah, we're very organized when it comes to that. But for us to unban him, you have to go to the different TOs. Like, we can't. We're not that organized. Now, personally, and then on top of that, he's saying, I'm not. I can't. I have no say over these other events. All I can do is, I only have control over Smash Camp because that's my event. Which, first of all, like, okay, it's your tournament, Smash Camp. Like, obviously, you don't have a say about every tournament, like, in the world, despite you being the one posting, like, most of the stuff justifying the ban. Like, while that does give off the impression that you are the like leading figure in all this, you really aren't in a way, because again, this is a group decision with each individual TO coming to it. But at the same time, you do have a say at Smash Camp, so you could discuss an unban for Smash Camp. Like, that's still a topic of discussion that can arise from this, number one. Number two, do you not see the problem of, like, a lack of a governing body to handle these cases and, like, deliberate on these types of things and, like, take appeals and that kind of stuff? Like, this is the problem. You can't use the problem as, like, your counter or, like, your response to criticism. You can't be like, wow, I'm trying to appeal my ban and they won't listen to me. He's like, you idiot. Why would you think you could appeal this ban? We're not organized. Why did you think we were organized? Why did you think we had, like, a system in place for you to be able to appeal? Like, what? Why would you assume that? It's like, what? That's the problem, is that there is no, like, governing body or, like, a unified panel or, like, organization from the TOs to discuss things like this. Like, in his statement here, he mentioned, and I said this in the last video, or the last stream, in November, they tried to reach a consensus, but the TOs ultimately disagreed. One time, in November of 2023. One time. Maybe other times, and he just didn't mention it. But in 2023, over 2 years after all of this went down, they decided, hey, let's discuss this? And they still couldn't reach a verdict, and they were just like, oh well, I guess you can't play. It's like, that's the problem, is that there isn't like an organized group for the TOs or like an organized panel for them to deliberate these cases. Which is weird because, again, when it comes to banning someone, they're super organized. All of them are able to get together to ban him. Look at all these TOs. They're all easily able to come together and agree on a ban to ban someone in a matter of days. They were all able to do that. But for an unban, they can't do that.
Oh my God, no way.
Yo, Sly Maverick, thanks for the 2.
Howdy, Fran.
Yo, howdy. Alright, but yeah, like, they're all able to come together in a matter of days to ban him. All of a sudden, they're super organized. They're super organized. They know what they're doing. They've become competent somehow when it comes to banning people. Unbanning? Nah, we can't do that. We're not organized enough for that. And then on the topic of, like, okay, so he's reaching out to you, and you can't control all these tournaments. Like, again, you do control Smash Camp. You could, like, discuss that with him. So that's already an issue. Number 2, you could just respond, like, you could be way more professional than just not saying anything. Like, you could at the very least respond and be like, hey, I can't control these guys. Like, I don't have a say. Like, are you gonna post that? This is the problem, is that this is all he posted. This is his entire response. If there were, like, DMs of him being professional and being like, hey, of him explaining this to him, that he doesn't run the community, or that he... like, despite making all the statements justifying the ban, that he's not the leading figure in all of this, or, like, the unifying figure in all of this, it's like, you could at least communicate that to him in the DMs, and at least respond in a respectful and, like, professional way, which is how you should be conducting yourself as a TO if you yourself want to be respected. It's just like... Like, this is the professionalism. This is the... What am I supposed to take away from this? When I see you ghosting him for months. Not even months, years. Because this is 2022 and this is 2023. You just don't respond in any capacity whatsoever. Like, again, you could have said, hey, I'm not the one in charge. I don't control all the tournaments. You could have said, hey, we could discuss, like, Smash Camp because I do run that tournament. Or you could say, no, I'm not going to unban you from Smash Camp. You could have at least responded. That's the bare minimum. To just tell him what the deal is. If you don't want to talk to him, then just tell him I don't want to talk to you. Instead of just ghosting him and then blocking him. And it's like, again, you guys told him to do this. You guys said, hey, don't post, like, public appeals because Leffen gets harassed. Now, granted, this happened beforehand. But it's like, when you tell that to him, after he's failed, going privately, because you guys won't respond, you guys won't actually deliberate a ban, or, like, discuss it at all. It's like there's no structure, there's no organization. It's a mess. And it's like he'll acknowledge that that's a legitimate criticism, but they won't acknowledge how that plays into this situation. They'll acknowledge, yeah, we're super unorganized, we have no clue what we're doing, there's no structure, there's no, like, appeals process or panel to handle these cases anymore. And then he doesn't realize how that plays into Hax's decision making throughout the past year, and why he makes videos to appeal his bans, why he tries like, they don't understand why he did the things to put himself in the situation he is in now. Like, if there was a proper, like, in a proper, like, appeals process, or, like, a proper, like, attempt to, like, actually discuss this ban and not just slap a indefinite length on it, which just all that did was just leave Hax in limbo. Then Hax would have been unbanned. There would have been, like, a definite ban length instead of just this indefinite BS. Where is it? Here. Okay, he says, I do still believe... So this is Mikey in 2021, in, like, August, I believe. Alright, how do I look at details? Yep, August 2021. Yo, mildly OCD, thanks for the 2.
Schrodinger's organized twos.
Exactly, they're both organized when it comes to banning people, and unorganized when it comes to unbanning them. Yeah, this is August 2021. They say, yeah, I do believe that an indefinite ban is the correct decision. Okay, I disagree. But then he says, I would also like to be clear, as there was some confusion, that indefinite is not the same as permanent. So it wasn't permanent from the start. This is after he dropped, like, 3 videos, by the way. They're still like, hey, this might not be permanent. Like, the ban might end, it might be eligible for appeal. He says, but at the moment, he does not wish to speak with us further on that. Okay, in literally the next summer, what did he do? He posted, like, 1 more video, like, trying to appeal it. Then he apologized, didn't talk about it for, like, several months, made, like, more, like, life update videos, like, and then he made, like, a full-on apology. He tries to reach out, You just ignore him instead of responding. It's like, how are you gonna say it's not, like, indefinite is not the same as permanent? In, where is it? Here. He says, where is it? He refers to the indefinite ban as temporary, despite the fact that most of the TOs never unbanned him at any point whatsoever. Where is that? Yo, shout out your boy. Where is it? I think it was... Where is it? Where does he say temporary ban? Or like a, He said there was something in here where they mentioned, that it wasn't permanent, or along those lines. Am I stupid? Control F temper. Yeah, I tried doing that. I couldn't find it. Where is it? There was a moment, either in was it in a different document? Oh, whatever. You can't. They called it like a, or partial. Was it partial? I think it was Yeah, here it is. Partial ban. There we go. Yeah, I'm stupid. It was right in front of me. So he says, I understand that a part of the discussion about this case has been about the community's conduct process more broadly, and the regrettable amount of time this partial ban was in place. Like, what? You can't call it a partial ban if you never unban him. At that point, it's just a permanent ban from the get-go, which you explicitly said at the beginning that indefinite was not, like, necessarily the same as permanent, and that there was a possibility that you would be able to unban him, or, like, allow him to appeal. Which, first of all, you should have just came up with a definite length to begin with, so then we wouldn't have been in the situation at all. Like, if you were gonna permanently ban him, then just permanently ban him from the outset. Don't say indefinite, where it's like, oh, he might come back, but we don't know, because then you're just leaving him in limbo. Like, just give him a definite length. It leaves... First of all, it leaves Hacks in limbo, because he doesn't know when he's gonna be unbanned. The TOs are in limbo, because they're like, oh, well, what are we gonna do about Hacks? We still haven't really discussed this. And it's not fair to Hacks because you claim it wasn't permanent at the time, and yet you never unbanned him. And the TOs are incompetent and they don't know how to, like, discuss an unban, as stated here. And you won't talk to him. It's like, you might as well have just... It should have just been a permanent ban from the get-go if it was going to end up like this. Because that's essentially what happened. Like, Genesis never unbanned... Like, look at how many of these TOs... How many of these TOs, or, like, scenes in Melee, actually, like, gave him a second chance? Willie P. Okay, that's, like, one. And then maybe, like, one or two of these guys, like, maybe, and I'm just guessing, just how, by looking, just glancing at it. It's like, none of these they're saying, oh, we need to permanently ban him. You already had him banned! You already had him banned! What do you mean? Like, there was no point to posting this. Like, first of all, there was no point in posting this, and then second of all, if there's no point in posting this, yet you were able to, again, you were able to magically organize to ban him, even when it wasn't necessary. It's just completely ridiculous. Questioning their decision is harassment. Don't forget. Exactly. Did he, like, forget? Like, what is... This is where this response starts to, like, make no sense. And I'm just so confused as to, like, what Mikey was cooking here. Because if he wanted to make it apparent that he does not have a final say on any ban decisions, or that, like, he's not the leading figure pushing this, like, you could have just said that to Hacks, and just been like, yo, I'm not the one in charge here. You have to take it up with the individual organizers. All I can control is Smash Camp. That's all he had to say. It's like, he doesn't take this ban seriously. Like, he doesn't take this seriously. He doesn't care that Hacks is going through any mental issues. When Dark Genix posted that post that was, like, detailing all the episodes that happened this year, Mikey posted, like, something about technicals in response to that. Like, he doesn't care. He doesn't care if Hacks unalives himself. Do you really think Mikey cares if Hacks unalives himself? No. He doesn't take this seriously. He doesn't care. This is just a joke to him. Did he, like, forget? I mean, apparently... And you never bothered to tell him or remind him that, hey, like, we're not organized like that, where we have one figure. Or, like, you can't, like, tell Hacks what other TOs are thinking. Be like, hey, I don't think these events are going to... It feels like they're not unbanning him to stand on business against tech. Yeah, that's basically it. That's the only excuse, is because, number one, they're all friends with, like, Greg, or, like, they all don't like Hacks, so they're all biased. And number two, they don't like tech. Those are the only, like, logical reasons as to why they would permanently ban him. He appealed his ban. And they were like, oh, you appealed it, that broke our rule. Even though it was a dumb rule in the first place. Because I'm gonna say it again, like, they made the rule because whenever he posted these public appeals, it, like, Leffen got harassed. Which I think is dumb that you would... First of all, it's dumb to attribute all of the harassment that Leffen receives to Hacks. Especially since in these statements, right? Where is it? Here. I'm sure I forgot a thing or two and might edit this doc to answer another common question or something, but really I'm hopeful this will stop the discussion on my end. I've gotten a lot of harassment by Technicals fans and other people, not blaming Hacks for this at all, just for clarification. It's like, at the same time, they're gonna try to nail him for, like, inciting harassment. They're not gonna blame Hacks for inciting harassment. They're trying to be fair while not being fair. Like, to be fair, he's not inciting the harassment, but we're gonna ban him for inciting harassment. Like, what? Like, you can't attribute all of the harassment or backlash that you get for these decisions solely on Hacks. when there's a, especially this specific ban, this NYC ban, like well before this one, so many like figures in NYC Melee were against it or disagreed with it. It wasn't just randoms on the internet. It was like respected figures. Like Aklo said he was against it. I know Django was pretty openly against it. Two Saint straight up tweeted out free hacks. I'm pretty sure Swooper was against it. Dark Gen X, they asked for his input on the ban and he voted for a month, so he was against a permanent ban. Yeah, I'm probably forgetting some people. Those aren't Technicals fans. In fact, those are people that attend your event. Like, isn't that the commonly used argument that, like, oh, all these people are just online, they don't actually go to their locals or go to these events? It's like, those are people in the NYC Melee scene. Yeah, and Cody was, like, split on it. Cody wasn't straight up against it, but he wasn't in favor of it either. He was, like, split. He was like, I can see both sides at the time. So again, first attributing all of the harassment to Hax's videos, especially when Hax's videos are literally apologies and appeals, were ridiculous. Like, to say that the Big House video incited harassment and made Leffen drop out of the Big House, and that was worthy of, like, criticism, and that was reckless. It was a reckless move. It's like, you can't attribute all Leffen hate to Leffen. Especially when Leffen is just a dickhead. And is hated just because he's just insufferable. And yeah, like you're saying, Simple Flips, Omni, Player Essence, me. Like, I have the video with, like, the bajillion views. You don't think I had something to do with this? Like, I don't condone harassment, but when it comes to at least, like, backlash, and again, and also in that video, I explicitly told people not to, like, harass or, like, send death threats or anything like that. But again, people are allowed to dislike Leffen and think poorly of him. And to attribute all of the negative like backlash to Hax is just stupid. And then on top of that, like, Hax is making these videos because he tried to contact people in private and it didn't work. It wasn't getting him unbanned. And he wasn't sure what to do. He wasn't sure, hey, do I need to, like, publicly apologize again? Like, what do I need to do to get unbanned? Because these private appeals are not working. And in the case of Mikey, he straight up just ghosted him and didn't respond. No response whatsoever. Did he, like, forget? Yeah. Yeah, and then there was, like, apparently they were trying to use, like, community notes to try to, like, fight back against the narrative. They've completely first of all, they've completely lost the narrative on this, right? So this is a poll that Orangabang, shout out to Orangabang, did. It had like 9,000 votes. 81%, or basically 82%, said no, which is over 7,000 people. So, like, ignore the percentages or, like, the ratio here, because that's not to say, like, this isn't indicative of the community. But still, that's 7,000 people flat. That, or more. More than 73,000, basically. Or 7,300 people think he should be allowed to play. And on top of that, my video has like 55,000 likes. So that's like 55,000 people just in the world that don't like Leffen or thought my video was good. And then you can see, after Smash Factor, 7,000 likes on Hax's post. Like, it's overwhelmingly the popular opinion. is to let him play. They've completely lost the control of the narrative. Like, it's completely gone. And now they need to resort to what? Community noting posts? Have they actually... Okay, so it hasn't gone through. But they're actually trying to, like, use community notes to try to, like, flip the script. Let's read this. They were saying there was no initial promise of a 2-year ban, rather an indefinite ban, that is true, that may extend the permanent. Indefinite is not the same as permanent. And again, he tried to reach out privately. And you just ignored him. They would qualify this as harassment. That's the craziest part. They would look at this and be like, look at him, he's obsessively DMing me. Like, look at I'm being harassed. This is like getting death threats. This is horrible. This makes me want to drop out of a tournament. Oh my god. It says, appealing the ban publicly was not the reason for the recent permanent ban. I mean, that was part of it. And to act like it was not. And he violated this clause, which is the banned individual engages in no additional interviews or public discussions on the topic of their ban for their own social media channels or any others. And they said he violated this clause. And this is for NYC Melee. So yeah, that was part of the ban. And if you're, by the time you get banned from your local scene, that's basically like getting banned globally, because no one's gonna let you play if you're banned from your local scene. He's asking to be unbanned. I feel unsafe now. Yeah, basically. Okay, you're getting... Alright. It's just like... Appealing the ban publicly was not the reason for the recent permanent ban. I mean, yeah, it kind of was. That was part of the reason. And it was a thing that you frequently criticize him for. And then the next thing is that, like, remember, when Greg posted Hax's address, it was June 3rd. When he posted, this is June 2nd. This is June 3rd. He was at Mikey's tournament. You see Smash... Where is it? Smash Camp. He was at Smash Camp is Mikey's tournament. How does he say it? He says here, I don't have the final say on any tournaments except for Smash Camp because he runs Smash Camp. So he's at Smash Camp while doxing Hax. Of course they're not actually going to do anything about that, because this is Mikey's best friend. You need to understand, the professional con man is Mikey's best friend. They're besties. Like that. This is what Mikey had to say about it. About Greg doxing Hax at Mikey's tournament. He says, for what it's worth, it is at least not Hax's correct address. So let me repeat that. Greg doxes Hax at the tournament Mikey runs, and Mikey addresses the situation by lying and saying that it's not Hax's address. And he says that because the specific apartment number was wrong. Like, it was still his apartment building. If you went to the building, you could have still found hacks there and put him and everyone else who lives there in danger. And that's the important thing. It's like, even if it wasn't Hax's address, like, at all, let's pretend that it was completely different, like somewhere in, like, I don't know, Wisconsin is the address that they put there. You're still putting whoever's address is there in jeopardy. Like, you're still putting them in danger. But to Mikey, that's worth something. For what it's worth. It's worth something that you are putting people in danger. At his tournament. While they're at his tournament. His best friend. His bestie. Greg's bestie, Mikey. And keep in mind, he doxed him while he's going through, like, a mental health crisis. Like, again, do you think Mikey actually cares if Hax unalives himself? Do you think he cares? Press 1 in the chat if you think he cares. Like, there's a reason why that whole clique of people was, like, memeing on and, like, dunking on Hax when Greg posted the, 67 to, yeah. It's like, I can't believe that he would actually care if anything happened. He'd just be like, well, I mean, we banned him. He didn't, that's not our fault, even though it entirely is. Because you guys mishandled the situation. I'm not gonna say you, like you specifically, Mikey, because again, you're not the god of the community. When I say you, I mean all of the TOs involved who failed to actually have, like, a proper appeals process and have an actual, like, organized conduct panel to review these cases and not keep Hax in limbo. Or maybe to just, you know, not give him an indefinite ban and just give him a definite ban length at the start that all the TOs could agree on. Yo, what's up, Spinda? Yeah, it's you. Yeah. It's like they don't realize how their actions influence the situation that we're in now. Yo, it's Jafor on another account? What's up, Jafor? Yeah, they don't understand how, if they had just given him, like, a definite ban length from the start, instead of an indefinite ban length, that would have changed everything. If they had said, you are banned for 2 years, or 2.5 years. Like, even though I don't think that's the appropriate punishment, that would have been way better than what happened in actuality. Where he was given no definite ban length. Just an indefinite length where there's no appeal process, or no structured, like, organized conduct panel to, like, review the case. The TOs don't actually, like, care to review it. The best part is the recommended 2 years, and then 2 years later, oh no, oh, we don't know, come back when we become an organized body. Basically. Smash has a very bad work ethic running it. It's everywhere. Yeah. It's like, I get that like a panel of TOs is not probably isn't feasible, because like you would like it would be volunteer work if you're not going to pay them, and then like that's also just going to fail. But it's like, again, when it comes to banning him, all of a sudden they're super organized. They're all able to come together and discuss this in a matter of days, when most of these tournaments already had him banned. They were able to come together and be like, yep, we're gonna keep him banned. It's just ridiculous. IDK, it's weird. Volunteer isn't an excuse. Don't volunteer then. I mean, do you... Like, that would be a ton of cases, first of all. Just the sheer volume of the cases that they'd have to handle. And if they're not getting paid... Like, I remember there used to be, like, a panel with, like, Dr. Piggy and, like, some other people. But, like, they just didn't have the time, the money to, like, review each and every case. Especially with, like, 2020 and all the Me Too stuff. Like, having to review every single case and, like, ban every single player. Like, it would have taken them forever. Like, that, I'm pretty sure that was the reason why they disbanded. It's just because it's not feasible or sustainable to do that. Have the TOs mentioned anywhere why they decided on indefinite and not a finite time? I honestly don't know. I'm pretty sure they just couldn't agree on a ban length. And just didn't bother to agree on a ban length. So they just said indefinite. It just makes no sense that the ban is like a unified thing with all of these TOs signing to it, but an unban is a TO by TO basis. Like, you might as well have made the ban a TO by TO basis to be like, okay, this TO is gonna ban him for this long, this TO is gonna ban him for this long, this TO is gonna ban him for this long. Like, indefinite ban is just dumb. Because again, it leaves everyone in limbo. The players in limbo because they don't know when they're going to come back. The TOs are in limbo because they still have to discuss things. Don't forget 2 months for the TO threatening people, and apparently he's not even from New York. Yeah, it's like... That's the thing I will give New York City credit, is that they did say that indefinite length was dumb, and that they'd rather just give him a permanent ban. Or that all bans should have a finite length, which is part of the reason why they unbanned him. Like, I think that's correct, is to just give everything a finite length, or just say this is permanent. But what do I know? It's not like the entire panel of New York City Melee TOs agrees with that. This was a regular player, not a TO, he would have gotten a permanent ban. I don't think he's actually a An NYC Melee TO. I'm pretty sure in their statement they said he wasn't. I would have agreed to a 3 to 6 month ban. Yeah, that's what I would have done. I would have just banned him for the rest of that year and then let him come back the next year with a clean slate. To be totally honest, I don't think Hacks ever has a chance. Yo, what's up, Tafo? I can give some info as a not TO. Okay. To be totally honest, I don't think Hacks ever has a chance of being accepted back into NYC Melee since he started asking attendees to contact Willie in his place. Yeah, I get that. Like, I said that in the last video, or the last stream, that, yeah, the stuff he's been doing, like, this year, like, going to the nightclub venue to appeal his ban, even though he's banned there, is, like, he's not helping his case. But at the same time, it's like, again, if there was a proper, like, conduct, like, structure to, like, appeal his case, or, like, to process the case, we wouldn't be in this situation to begin with. And, like, does it warrant a, does his actions this year warrant a permanent ban with, like, no appeal? It's like, I just don't think so. Like, should he be disciplined for it? Absolutely. But, like, permanent with no chance to appeal and, like, to never come back ever again for the rest of his life? I don't think so. I think that's harsh. Especially because I feel like they're ignoring a big chunk of the reason why we're in this situation is that I think the TO screwed up. Large issue in terms of unification is that it's hard to get all the TOs together to make a decision. Example, try to get 100 players to agree to a rule set is next to impossible with scheduling. That's true. Yeah, that's true. That's a part of the issue. That's like what I was saying when I was saying like that a conduct panel isn't feasible because again, you'd need a large group of people to agree on something. First of all, you need a large group of people, basically unpaid labor, to volunteer to process the cases, and then you'd need them all to agree to something. So that is true. But at the same time, based off of the information that does that's been put out there, like here, it doesn't sound like there were many like structured attempts to try to come to some sort of consensus besides like in November. But I might be mistaken. Blur used to be the go-to person to catalyze things among the larger TOs, and he was paid by Twitch to do it, but then he left so efforts are decentralized. Yeah, that's... yeah. If you want, I can just hop in and do the best within what I can share processes to questions you have. Okay, sure. Well, let me open Discord. If you want to hop on. Because I'm actually interested to what you have to say. Applicants on Discord. I do hope Greg Turbo faces some kind of consequence for doxing. That was unbelievable. Everyone I knew knows it was so messed up. Yeah, like, that should just be an open and shut thing. I don't know why it's not. But yeah. Alright. Let me see. I have to add his friend first. Okay. Um. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna start a.
Yeah, did you want video or is just voice fine?
Voice is okay. Let me turn off my music. Alright, what's up, dude? How you
Yeah.
doing?
Let me turn off your stream because now I hear double. All right,
Oh yeah.
cool. Yeah. So I think just for like kind of context, I'm loosely involved in Melee, but I'm friends with a lot of parties. So, but because I'm a dad now, like I've
Mm-hmm.
largely backseat role. I
Yeah.
think for context to the stream, I used to be involved in the CFC. I think when I was more involved, I worked a lot of questions with the five, code of conduct, rule sets. Worked with Genesis, Shine, Big House. I'm friends with all of them, so I generally have a pretty good sense of what goes on. But I will say that there's probably some things I can't share due to privacy of parties. So I'll do my best to kind of elaborate on what I can.
Okay.
Uh, but yeah, so just giving you a little bit of background.
Okay. So yeah, basically one of the biggest things I want to know is just how many attempts were made to try to come to like sort of, so in Mikey's document, right? He mentions how in November of 2023 there was a structured attempt to reach a consensus. Was there any other like structured attempt between the TOs?
I think so. I will preface by saying like this is based on like the information I have, so I may not be 100% on it, but I think the
Mhm.
general sense that I got was whenever there was something large enough to warrant a change of events, whether it was like hacks posting a video or there's an upcoming major, then what ended up happening was some people would try to open the discussion up again.
Mhm.
But I think it's just overall just really hard to get all the people on the same page. So like imagine like something comes up, big let's it's July right now, or and now you have to get the Genesis TO. They're Sheridan, Boback. They live their own lives. They have jobs outside of running events. So only the people who have an event coming up are probably more in tune with like what's happening on Smash social media.
Mhm.
And so like there is like a pretty big disconnect a lot of the time to really get people to really make a decision, which is I think why you may have people sign together on that, but to have a discussion with like 50 people and like come to a consensus is just overall really hard. And that's usually what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I could imagine that like it's much easier when it comes to just saying, "Oh, well, we'll give him an indefinite ban and then take care of it later. See how that's going to like play out and discuss this later." Because they can't agree to a different definite length because again, that's like 50 different TOs with 50 different opinions and experiences with the situation. So it makes sense that it would be hard to come to like a definite ban in the moment. So it's a lot easier to just say, "Oh, indefinite," and then we'll take it from there. Um, I guess
Yeah.
my issue is that so Hacks makes his videos like 2021, right? and then he
Yeah.
apologizes. He spends the next, I guess, 2 years, basically, I guess you could say good behavior. It's not like he made any more like videos during that time period to target Leffen or like speak about the situation or like relitigate things. Um, in 2022 September, NYC Melee post their statement saying, "Hey, we're thinking about letting him back at the start of 2023." And normally, like I know some other instances back when CAG still ran his global ban database, um, the way things would usually work is like a lot of these bigger tournaments. If you're banned from your local scene, they usually follow suit. Like if you get banned, they will also be like, "Yeah, we're gonna ban them." And then the expectation is that if they get unbanned from their local scene, um, the large it's like a domino effect, right? That they
Yeah.
get unbanned from their local scene. So it was just like over that year, I made a video like back when in last year when all this was going down that like just all throughout the year it seemed like even though he was unbanned from his local scene and like a couple of tournaments here and there like Smash Factor, Coinbox, like it seemed like there was just no progress or to sort of like no one was willing to unban him despite the display of like how he could be a positive influence and like the good behavior over that
Yeah.
time period. And it was just confusing because it's like it felt like he was doing everything he needed to be doing to get unbanned, but it wasn't happening, you know? So I guess what I'm saying is hmm,
Maybe I could put it into frame for you, and then you can confirm whether I caught the sentiment, right?
yeah, okay.
So let's do that. So from your point of view, right, as you're observing this, right, um, you saw a series of events happen, right, that wasn't good, right, and then he had some punishment, right,
Hmm.
but because of the indefinite timeline and seemingly like what seemed like good, behavior, now you're wondering like what else could he have done given what you're observing,
Yeah.
right? Is that the gist of what I think you're feeling, or the
Yeah.
vibes for you? Um, yeah, it's I'm trying to like figure out how to, because I'm trying to like see how I can. There's a lot of, so I think if we're to play Occam's razor, right, of what you're observing, right, like I
Hmm.
think what you are observing, what you are seeing is very valid, right? I think uh if I wasn't really involved, and let's say I just follow Smash just on Twitter, and right, and I'm just a general fan, right? Like I look at this, I would probably have very similar questions to you, right? I don't think what your conclusion is necessarily like you're not crazy for thinking that, right? Is
Hmm.
like what I'm trying to get at. I think the difficult part of this, and I don't know how to like say this other than like just trust me, bro, because like I as much as I've tried to, and like do you remember the Captain Zach case? Like
Yes.
like so when we look at that in particular, right, and we see that the end result was that without people knowing what happened, that both Nairo and Captain Zach got banned, right? And your immediate response is, well, like how is that even possible? Because Captain Zach's a kid, he's ultimately by default the victim here, right? Like how did this
Hmm.
happen? And it was one of those things that it's hey, you have to trust that we want to keep everything private. But eventually, when the part I forget how it got revealed, but it got revealed that Captain Zach did some things that, when you look at it in hindsight, it makes sense that he got banned. I don't know if that's a controversial statement, but does that make sense?
Yeah.
But like without that background information, I would be like, what the hell? Captain Zach's a minor. Like, of course he's the victim here. But then we look at the details of the case that came out. Then now it comes a question of like, does that information need to be public? And that's something that I've consistently tried to figure out. Like, is like what limit is it fair and appropriate that information that has been kept away from the public should be, fair game for everyone to see? And that's something I don't have a great conclusion on. That I'm also struggling here with the case. There have been other cases in my experience with the CFC
Hmm.
where people threaten litigation, and as a result, we couldn't say anything, or else we would have gone sued. There's one case where I'm not going to name the names, where one person did something really bad, but they settled. But if we mentioned anything publicly about it, we would get sued.
Hmm.
And but then for a person, if let's say that person was very popular and they create a narrative, similar to like the doctor disrespect stuff, where it was
Yeah.
NDA, and Twitch kept private because they believe it was in the best interest. Like, I don't really have an answer for like what we do in that situation. And given that I'm not a PR market specialist, I frankly just don't have answers to those kind of situations.
Hmm.
Now, when it comes to this particular case, there may be. I mean, there's a Greg Turbo has like a legal document, right? There's the case there, right?
Hmm.
There's other potential lawsuits that may or may not happen, which is why um, which is why I think a lot of TOs are hesitant to be a little bit more public about what's going on, because I'm not going to use hacks as an example because it's like, let's say there's a case where a person was found guilty, right? But there's also a lawsuit happening, right? But then person gets banned. Let's say Mango got banned, right? But there's a
Hmm.
lawsuit happening. He's countersuing. Then like we can't really reveal the information without a large lawsuit, and we don't have money to fund like getting sued by one of the parties.
Hmm.
And so that's the struggle we get towards. So I think first and foremost, if we're to take a step back, so I want to bring that up because it's always hard. It's hard to really disclose what's public in an environment where I think a lot of people want to see more transparency. Sometimes it's just
Yeah.
not a realistic option as much as we'd want things to go public. And I would say, given the relationship dynamic with some people, they would love to go public and maybe share a case of why hacks should be banned, but they can't, right? And other people may want to defend hacks, but they can't, just because of just a lot of interesting dynamics at play.
Hmm.
I will say, like, taking a step back, I think the one thing that I would have probably disagreed on is the initial communication. I think if I were on this case, I'd probably say like it should have been permanent, or there should have been some sort of um, very clear messaging. From my understanding, when I asked around, some people were very clear with hacks on that you are permanently banned. But because there's not a monolith of like, so if I'm in Hacks' perspective, I might go like, well, am I banned from Genesis and Big House? But am I? But some people are saying I am indefinitely banned. So does that mean I'm not banned, even though the Genesis TO told me I'm permed? Like, I can see where hacks could potentially get mixed messaging, and that's probably the
Hmm.
one aspect where I think there could have probably been a better job done in communication.
Yeah. I saw someone in chat earlier to go back to the whole like centralized panel thing. They
Yeah.
mentioned, do you think that a centralized panel would be like a net positive or a net negative for the community? Um,
Uh,
I just want to say this first. Like, I could see how it could be like a net negative. Like, let's say in a specific case, like a bunch of people on the panel were like biased one way or the other. That could potentially be an issue. Um, but yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of goes back to, you kind of realize like the inefficiencies of bureaucracy and like even government. Like,
Hmm.
we did the CFC, right? Like, it's like, do you have people who are representing people on the behalf like a democracy, or do you have more people, right? And I think the hardest part about it is like the efficiency, because if you were to have people represent like what the smashers want, you like if you wanted everybody to be a total free, like everyone has to come in and decide on what goes on, like nothing would get done because it's just so hard to get people, and that's why like at some point you kind of have to make a compromise that maybe there are some biases and maybe not everyone's getting super represented, but having like 10 people meet versus like 100 is just practically just easier. Like
Mhm.
whereas if you were to say like 70 out of 100 people have to come, then you're never getting any.
Yeah.
So it's tough. I think one of the large things you're probably targeting is just the inherent weaknesses of having a non-centralized body. Whereas I've worked in the Riot ecosystem. I was a general manager for CLG, in the League ecosystem, where it's a lot more official and whatever Riot says kind of goes. And maybe not everyone necessarily agrees with like what the decisions are made, but the fact is they're making decisions and they're making
Hmm.
it pretty quickly. So those are just the trade-offs you have, and I don't really know moving forward with Smash if something there's a better system. I think in the past, whenever we had things come up, we had a pretty trusted member with Scar, if you remember him, like
Hmm.
Scar, Sheridan, Cactar, Prague, all these people who were really generally well respected. So whenever, like when Muta King and Unknown 5 or Ryan 4 colluded and they split the pot, we did a
Yeah.
Melee Omni stream and it we quickly solved the issue altogether. We just don't have that today, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But that would probably be the most pragmatic way, is if there was a trusted body within the community that we could rely on and just sign off and say like we trust these people with the community and go for it, then that's probably the fastest way we could get any.
Yeah. I could. Yeah. I could
Yeah.
see how like having like that trust element, like knowing that the people who are doing the job in that position are doing it like to the best of their ability, like without bias, that they know the situation. Um, and then like yeah, like a level of uh transparency. Like it's not always feasible that TOs are able to speak on every little detail of every single case. But I think it is, you know, I think at the very least, like the details that they can share, like I do think there is, um, like there's a benefit to being transparent with the information that you can be, and I feel like, especially with this case, there hasn't really been too much transparency besides like a statement here and there from Mikey or like that statement from Willie P. Um, and I feel like that also plays into the issue when
Yeah.
it's in when some places are saying he's permanently banned, some places are saying there's an indefinite ban. Like okay, if it's some of these places are indefinite and he's in limbo and there's not much like communication or transparency going on, that could be an issue.
Yeah.
Um,
It is from my understanding that some events have said permanent, and I think someone could correct me if I'm wrong. That there was no negotiation, but apparently there was like Pax allegedly decided to try to negotiate, or kind of like a mom said no, so I'm going to ask dad. If dad says no, I'm going to ask the uncle, kind of thing going on
mhm.
until like he could find a person that would give the answer that kind of benefited him the most.
Yeah,
So if like if I ask for people, they say no, and the other person says like, oh, like maybe for some circumstances, like, and then they go, okay, that's the answer I'm taking. So I've
yeah.
heard allegedly that's like kind of happened.
I can tell you
Now,
from like personal experience, like speaking with him, like I completely believe what you're saying.
yeah, and so that's what makes it so difficult, because I think in order to have like safeguarded communication around that, like because I did that, when I was younger, right? If dad said no, like I would do whatever I can to kind of get what I wanted if it was like a
Hmm.
new video game or whatever. But then I don't think a lot of TOs are really equipped to deal with that as a potential. It's like kind of like a general, there's a sense of trust. Like if I tell you you can't come to my tournament, that like there isn't going to be some like kind of loophole that happens. And so I think a lot of TOs were probably caught by surprise when there was mixed messaging, when I think in their minds they're like, well, like I think I was pretty clear with Pax in this particular case that I told them no. Um, So I think the part that you bring up is like transparency, right? And like, uh, it's always a struggle for me because like I think we can reasonably agree that Twitter is kind of a shit show in terms
Yeah.
of discussions, right? And this is where I think in general I probably would not vibe with talking to you or tech on Twitter because I just generally think it's not productive. No offense to him or you.
Hmm.
But I have, for what's worth, talked to him in private a few times over different things. So it's not like we are like completely, you know, on islands. But at the same time, you mentioned a key point about like transparency. So like even outside the hacks thing, I'm just kind of curious, like if if there is like a ban or something, like what would you feel comfortable with that would make you feel like okay, that seems fair or like reasonable?
An example that comes to mind is back when, like a few years ago, if you remember, when Genesis banned West Balls.
Yeah.
Um, they didn't put out like any sort of like statement or anything. Like they don't have to give a reason, like if that needs to be confidential. But I think at the very least saying that he is banned publicly or something like that, like to that effect. Like the fact that we're hearing it from Wes, that he was banned and not like some sort of public statement. Because if his case is so serious that it warrants a ban, um I feel like that's something that the public should know, that hey, he's not allowed at our tournament. We're not really gonna divulge too many details, but it's along the lines of this. I think just that's just an example that I think could have been handled better, is the whole West
Okay.
Balls thing. Because I noticed, like speaking to Wes, that like I don't think he actually got a refund. Like I heard Genesis staff told him that he was banned in like January, because if you remember that year it got delayed to April. But I don't think he got his refund until like March. Um, like he checked his emails, and I think he found an email that was like, we're refunding you in like March." So yeah, I don't know. I just feel like that whole situation could have been handled better.
Yeah. I heard because I'm friends and like I think if Bobak or Sheridan they like emailed and messaged him multiple times, and then I think when he's like if I'm just recollecting what happened, he went on stream and didn't know, but I think what Bobak said numerous times is they tried to contact him multiple times and he just never responded.
Mhm.
So that's the tough part. So I'm not gonna necessarily for that. Wes could have his own thoughts and
Oh
feelings, but
my
from my
God,
understanding,
no
from what I've
way,
seen, is that
yeah,
they did try to message
yeah.
him through 2 to 3
I
different
tried to
avenues,
take the
finding out that he was
conversation off
banned.
Twitter
So I
and ran
think
a
for them,
Reddit
it
poll
was
on
pretty
whether or not
surprising
to
to
unban
see
hacks.
that he wasn't
Votes
aware
were
that they were trying
50-50
to
until mods
contact him.
deleted it first thing in the morning. They do not want a
So I
discussion
got a super
lol.
chat. Yo,
Yeah,
thanks
yeah, no
Full
problem.
Metal
Take
Bleach
your time.
Note for the 20. So yeah. Um, yeah. Uh, One last question. Just from like just from the start of the whole hack situation to now, um, do you think that, just in your opinion, do you think that a permanent ban is warranted in this situation? Just based off of the information you have and like your experience with this situation.
This is I don't know if I could like I think the brunt if I can't really go into I can't really go into I I don't really want to like sidestep this question. Um, I'm just trying to see how to like protect all parties here. I All right, let me like I'm just thinking out loud here. So like just kind of bear with this. This is just kind of like unscattered thoughts here, and this is just I'm going to preface by saying this is just my opinion. Um,
Yeah, just take your time if you need to.
yeah, like if I'm going to take extremes and try to work my way into like the middle of the gray. So like if like hacks like if like we were in like 2050 and like hacks was like 50 years old and he wasn't welcome to a tournament, it would feel kind of weird, right? Like
Mhm.
I'm just using that as like a starting point. um I think there are a lot of and so we're saying permanent off of every tournament, right? Like
Yeah.
or like are we considering like smash factor if he opened his own garage tournament, or if I don't know for whatever reason like Mana Monthly like ran a major and decided to like bring him, right? Like I'm just trying to think of like what are the parameters here,
I was just like when
like what are we
the
defining.
TOs put out the statement saying that we're permanently banning him. Like, do you think that is warranted, or do you think that that might be a bit too harsh?
I think what needs to so I think what needs to happen to define it, I think when we define things, I think there needs to be a criterion first, right? And that needs to set the stone for everything. So it's like if we're like doing a like if we're going to take this to the game, like I can't ban a camper, right? Like because I haven't really defined what camping is. Like is it a ledge grab limit? And if that's not properly defined, then it becomes a lot harder to really say like, oh, is this person banned for permanent, right? I think we have general rules on like what that could be. Like if a person SA'd somebody or
Mm-hmm.
like those are probably more obvious. Like those are pretty black and white. That if there was like evidence of it, then that's a pretty that's a life that's a lifetime in my book.
Mm-hmm.
I think given what I've seen, I think it's justifiable. But if like a somebody thinks like oh it's like less than that, then like it's not one of those things where I'm gonna think like you're the scum of the earth or like that you're wrong for getting that conclusion. I think that's where I'm like currently at. Like if you think perma for this is on the strict end, like I can perfectly see why you came to that conclusion. And like I'm not it's not like a political like black and white thing where like oh if you agree with this or don't then like you're dumb, right? Like I don't think that's the case.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
I think it's just so tough because there's potential like potential lawsuits. There's things with mental health that come up, and there's probably a lot of conversations that could probably help the TOs in explaining why they got to the conclusion that wouldn't be helpful for Hax's health, I guess. And that's where it's like really tough to really say. Like I can't really give the reasons.
Okay. All right.
Like there are things where if tech wants to view me a certain way or if I want to view tech a certain way, right? We both have an agreement. We're not sharing what we talked about, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I may come out of it with an opinion of him, and he may come out of an opinion with me. And if he says like Taff was the worst person ever, like, but it's based off the conversation we've had, then like it's understandable.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I think that's the tough part, and I think what you allude to is, in I think the tough part here, right, is I think this is a problem that I've thought about and how to solve, right? Because I think what you're highlighting and what this case highlights is a need for leadership within the community that has, I think, kind of gone missing since like we lost like Scar and other prominent figures that people could point to and kind of unify around. And so if we had like everything from like conduct related things to would we be able to really rally people for like another spirit bomb, or if Nintendo decides to do something like bad, like could we rally around a person? I don't know if that's even possible. So I think you highlight points of communication, a sense of trust that needs to happen. Um, and I guess when we come to that, I'm just thinking out loud here. When you think of like what would restore trust, like is it a person, is it an entity? Like, because we tried the CFC, right? And being on the CFC, it was the most stressful thing ever, and that's why a lot of us actually quit.
Yeah.
So like what do you think that would look like? And we talked about more transparency, but does that come in the form of a person representing people? Is it an organization? Like, is it something like Melee It On Me? Like, what do you think that looks like? What do you think looks like to you in an ideal scenario?
Well, I just think I don't know, it's hard to I just feel like if the TOs like maybe like one from each region. So like you have Tri-State is like a region or NYC. You have like SoCal, NorCal. Just like all meet together and like if I know in one of my videos I gave an example of like, hey, instead of Hacks posting his videos like on his YouTube channel, if there was like a board of TOs or something that he could submit it to like review it. Because, a big part of his ban was that it was they said like defamation and harassment. Both of those have like a public component to it, like publicly posting like defamatory statements or like publicly like inciting harassment. But um if he could like submit it to like just like a panel of, doesn't have to be like TOs or like trusted community figureheads. He would be able to like express his concerns without incurring like some of the negatives to that posting a video to his YouTube channel would have. Um
I
yeah, I
think for
know.
what it's worth, I think for a couple, like almost all those drafts, he did reach out to people and they told him like, please don't do it. And I think the one thing I would like to clarify here is that I think there are worlds where, because if we look at the pattern that has happened, right, and like as much as I want to detach like Leffen, is Pax and Leffen understandably had beef in their past life, but what was happening, and I think where TOs were very specific about this was, I think there is a kind of a Venn diagram where Hax could talk about his like behavior like improving over the past like 1 to 2 years without mentioning Leffen, because the flip side of it was, I think from what I gathered, was that he was gambling on making this last ditch public effort to get himself like be able to attend Big House. So he made the one of the evidence zip videos before Big House, which incurred that now Leffen's getting harassed for it, right? And then he did it again for Genesis, right? Where he made a video a week before, and now Leffen's getting death threats again, right? I think there is a world where Hacks could have probably made those videos without mentioning Leffen, like, and he could have probably talked about progress, right? Like, I think that's where like things are a little confusing for me, like from my POV here. Is like there's worlds where like I think Hacks misplayed greatly because they was told just don't like I I'll have to go back to the TOs and read the documents, but I think there's a world where like he could have talked about like Big House and Genesis without really mentioning Leffen and just talking about like the progress he's made, and that may have probably worked.
Yeah, I I feel like, I don't know,
Like
with this
I guess for
situation,
oh, go ahead, go ahead.
maybe like in this situation, I feel like, I don't know if it's a way to, like, maybe, like, I agree, like there were a plethora of ways he could have appealed this or like posted videos without like bringing any sort of like relitigation to like the points he tried to make in his original videos. But in terms of like mentioning Leffen like at all, like, I don't know, I feel like in this situation, I just feel like there's so much context to why he made the .zip videos in the first place that involve like his interactions with Leffen, like leading up to the metagame documentary, and like leading up to his .zip video, um, that helped put like his actions and his thought process to making his .zip videos like into like perspective, into context. Like one of them was the as I said before, like the metagame documentary, how he felt like Leffen was trying to downplay his actions from like years ago. Uh and like that's something he touched on in his January video, in a way to be like, hey, this was my thought process behind making those videos. But I overreacted. I personally, I don't think his January ban appeal video was like, this is just my opinion. I don't think it was like too egregious to where like NYC Melee came to the decision to permanently ban him after that video. Um, I don't think this is just my opinion. Like I don't think it
Yeah.
was warranted because like several times throughout the video he's like apologizing to Leffen and saying I needed to do better. I took things out of proportion. Um, and I just felt like he was mentioning Leffen in a way not to like relitigate things, but to give context to his actions at the time. Um, Now whether that was necessary or not is debatable. But I don't know. I just feel like like I mentioned this earlier in the stream. I don't think it's fair to attribute all of the harassment Leffen receives regarding the situation solely to hacks when there's like a multitude of, first of all, a multitude of people talking about the situation. Like you got me, you got technicals, you got um, other people as well. I know other YouTubers like Omni, Simple Flips made a video about it. Player Essence has been vocal on Twitter about it. And then secondly, you know, Leffen's just like a hated figure in general. So he's gonna receive harassment and like backlash no matter what, just from existing. Because again, people don't like him. He's very disliked. So
Yeah,
that
I mean, okay.
so that's just part of it. As to like when he makes his video before Big House, and then Leffen drops out of Big House, um, and a lot of the TOs attribute or at least say that, hey, you shouldn't make these videos like publicly like discussing the situation. Like I don't think that's necessarily fair that he's not allowed to talk about his, because that was one of the stipulations in his NYC Melee statement, is like you don't like discuss your ban publicly, like take it up with the TOs. I don't think that was necessarily the fairest stipulation. And again, if you want to say that, I mean, he agreed to it, so you have to follow it. It's like, he really have a choice, you know?
I think so I think when I rewatched, like, I'm gonna have to, like, for me to get my like facts fully straight, like it did feel like the January 2024 video was like, oh yeah, like I felt this way about Leffen, but let me remind you that he did A, B, C, D, and E. Like that's the vibe I got from the January video. Correct me if I'm wrong there. I guess a difficult thing for me to really examine, right? And maybe a Bobak or Sheridan could talk about this for specific for Genesis, is that I think Sheridan and Bobak specifically told him for Genesis, the 2024 Genesis, that he was banned. Like he was not welcome. There was nothing he could do to really to to come this year. And then the video comes out to reinstate that he should be allowed to go to Genesis. So I think that's where like it becomes a little bit confusing, because I think from my understanding, Hacks already knew that no matter what he did, he wasn't welcome by Genesis. But he doubled down, and I think he mentioned this in a tweet recently, like semi recently, in one of the apologies, that he thought he could go all in and gamble his, even though the Night House, the New York TOs told him, hey, if you make this video that you've shown us, we're gonna need to ban you. Please do not put this video up. And then he decides to ignore that and then put up the video, even though like I think the Genesis TOs were pretty clear that
Mhm.
he was not welcome at Genesis this year. And I think he talked to a few New York guys before he released the video, and they told him, do not. And at that time, he was already allowed to go to tournaments, and then because of this, he was banned. In my Just before we talk about it, wasn't that the case? Like, am I wrong here? Wasn't that the case here?
The case that he was able to attend tournaments at the he was able to attend,
The
like I know
nightclubs.
Night NYC had him allowed. to attend. Smash Factor obviously was going to allow him, and that's all I know. Like for certain, he would have been allowed at, because most TOs the year prior, like in 2023, did not let him attend. Like it was very few events let him attend.
Yeah, because there's the if I put the I'm gonna just pass you the document. There's just so much to this that like even just like figuring it out. I know that there's been like 20-page documents. There's like a 60-page document on this, but
Hmm.
that's what I recall from the time.
Yeah.
Um, so that's what's tough for me. I think I definitely hear you, right? Like harassment to Leffen, right, is not concentrated like it's not concentrated to hacks, right? If I probably go to Guilty Gear or Tekken, right, like there's probably people that don't like Leffen,
Yeah.
right? I hate Leffen's online presence. I'm friends with him in real life, but I, I don't, I try to avoid, discourse or arguments with Leffen, at least on Twitter, right? Because I, I don't like his Twitter personality, although I think he's largely kind of gone underground for the most part, at least. So, like, I totally understand that. So I think, I mean, what's your thoughts on like the dark, not really P, but like Dark Genic?
The Dark Genix document that
Yeah,
he posted.
yeah,
Yeah, I had known about some of the things that had gone down behind the scenes. Um, the way I looked at it was to basically like humanize him, to be like, hey, look, like my friend, he needs help. Like, because again, there are people who are like making fun of him, like over the band situation, um, like telling him like, oh, just get a job. But it's like he's clearly passionate about this game, and it's like Gen X posts this to show like, hey, like this is all the stuff he's been going through recently. We're trying to help him. Because like I have opinions on hacks as a person, like from my interactions with him. And I try to separate that from my criticisms with the TOs.
yeah,
Because I think in this situation, like I can say like, yeah, hacks definitely messed up in multiple ways. Um, Posting that like the truth video this year, I did a whole live stream like ranting like we told you like this is a terrible idea, don't do this, and he did it anyways. At the same time, like I think there are also warranted criticisms towards the TOs. But in terms of Genex's document, like yeah, I knew about some of the things like behind the scenes about like the hospitalizations, um, his an interaction with one of his Discord mods that was just like hit like again as I was saying like people are like making fun of him and like taunting him over the situation when one of his Discord mods is like who I can tell you from personal experience they told Hacks to like make a video and were like encouraging him and like
yeah,
egging him on, and then for him to turn around and be like pretend like as a joke just to torment with him, be like, yeah, I was actually like a spy this whole time. Like that's just like terrible uh behavior. Yeah, I
yeah.
knew about that. Yeah, I knew about a lot of the things in that document. That's just my read of it, is to be like, we're trying to help him. We don't know what to do. But please like lay off him. Like we're trying to get him the help he needs. And yeah, that was basically my read. That was just
Yeah.
how I interpreted it.
I think the tough part, and I'm trying to see if I could like you've been, I mean, we've all been in relationships before, right? And I hope people don't ever have to really deal with this. But I think there's an extent of sometimes where we I'm not sure if you've ever, and I hope you haven't ever, but like you've been in a relationship where it's now like, hey, if you don't do X, like I'm gonna do this to myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I think this is where I think some of the TOs may reasonably like I hope that people generally see this in good faith, that when they say like, hey, like we're concerned about his mental health, that that dynamic kind of comes into play, where there may or may not be conversations where like one party goes, hey, if you do X or don't do X or don't do this, like there may be self-harm. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that's what makes a lot of the decisions really dicey, because it's like on one hand, I've been a part of the community for 20 years. I've known Hacks since like '09. Like that's the first time I met him 15 years ago. So like
Mm-hmm.
I think on one hand there is like, I will reasonably say that a lot of people really care for him. Like we've been a part, like we're a small grassroots community. I've seen Hacks like at like every tournament when I was traveling multiple times per year. We'd always chat. We played Pokemon cards together. Like, and like I do hope the best, and I think a lot of people would say the same. But like I think amidst like the kind of the unpredictable behavior, like that makes that statement I just made about relationships makes things a lot more difficult to really like go like what's the best course of action here. And I think that's a struggle that like a lot of people have in regards to this.
Yeah.
Is like being told individually like, so I my wife is in the room, you know, we're happy, but if like it got to the point where she's telling me, hey, if you don't do A, B, and C, like if you break up with me, I might do self harm, right? Like then that was the decision. Like I stay in this relationship where I'm not happy. I'm forced to do things against my will, or do I, because I'm worried the other party's going to do something if I don't do exactly what that person says to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think makes a lot of this really really tough on a very human.
Yeah.
And I think that's why like when you see like Cody or Zane talk about it, right? Like they don't. It's a dicey thing where you want to help the situation, you know, Hacks, but if you do things that you may think might help the decision move forward, there could be an implication of mental health or self harm, and that's what I think makes like, because we don't come into the scene being psychologists, we're not therapists, we don't have degrees in this, and I think that's where a lot of people are just stuck. If I'm like being, if like that's a large contributor to all this.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where, so that's part of the dynamics at play. I think I revealed a little bit more than I probably should have. But if you're wondering why PO, um, like let's say they bring out more information that puts hacks into bad light, does that cause more mental damage to hacks? But it also justifies like the decision they make, right? That's a decision that comes up, you know, quite
Mm-hmm.
often in there.
Yeah,
Um,
I could definitely see that. Because it's like you want to justify your decision, but if you do that, you know it's going to have an effect on Hacks, who's already in a very vulnerable state. See, I could see that.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me like the Yugi Kaiba if you ever watch season one, where like Yugi wants to win, but then Kaiba like, but yeah, so that's what makes it, that's just what makes it really tough, and I don't envy any TO that's involved. I mean, and that's part of the decisions and situations like this where you're dealing with real humans with very unique circumstances where you're constantly evaluating is part of the reason why I left the CFC. It's thing like watching the Captain Zach case, being a part of cases where once I found more information, it kind of reminds me of when, you know, if you're like a YouTube or moderator where you're just watching videos to like get rid of content and you're like filtering that, like you see like the worst of humanity in some ways, and it's just not a fun position to be in.
Yeah. I guess
Yeah.
like on an issue that like I brought up to Tech when I was talking about this is I would tell him like, yo, Hacks is just going off the rails. Like in X, he's done X, Y, and Z. Like I don't know if this is um that he's actually gonna like improve or get unbanned anywhere. And that this whole thing is worth it. And like the way he explains it, like he mentioned it in his video, like a huge part of the reason why like Hacks has deteriorated like mentally is because of this ban that's been going on since like 2021. And if we consider that ban like unwarranted, right? We don't think he should have been banned that long, and that a permanent ban is warranted. Like, so we would consider it like an unjust punishment that's causing him to act this way. And he said like using his response to that punishment to then further justify the punishment um isn't okay. So when he's like mentally he's like like you can see in his Discord like over the past month he's just been completely like spiraling. It's like there's a level where I'm like, is it really healthy for him to return to Smash? Like, but at the same time, I do think the fact that he isn't able to play is what brought us to the situation in the first place. Like that's what I was saying earlier, how I like separate my criticisms of like Hacks and his behavior over these months. I separate that from my criticism for the TOs because like again, I feel like obviously I don't agree with the ban, and if that ban is the reason why like he's mentally like this, then it's like I can't like I don't feel good like blaming him for stuff when I think if the TOs had done a better job, we would have been in a different reality and Hacks wouldn't be like spiraling like he is. Um and that um yeah, basically I just feel like it's I just feel like it's been mishandled from all sides, not just the TOs. Of course Hacks has done things. I just feel like I just wish Hacks didn't make his videos in the first place. Like or at least stopped after the first one. I think that would have been I feel like if he had just made one video and then saw the response and just stopped, I feel like that would have been we would be in a different situation. I also feel like if the TOs were maybe more forgiving, um, I also think we would be in a different situation. This is just where we are now, and yeah, I just
Yeah, I think
it's
it's just
frustrating.
like, oh, sorry.
Oh no,
Yeah, I think
you
it's
go.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's yeah. I think that's just probably just like us just relating to like the situation just as humans, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah. So it's tough, and I'm I think like again, this is probably why I just don't have like the capacity to like be making these calls or decisions, right? And that's why like I've taken a step back because like as a joke,
Yeah.
like I don't get much sleep. I'm a new dad. Like I can't be thinking about community like stuff like a CFC case. Like each of those like take like 5 to 10 hours to process and think about.
Yeah.
And even then, after I make a decision, like I'm like, did I make the right decision? Like,
Mm-hmm.
and there's just like numerous things where I'm like, okay, well, if this person did this differently, would I think that like all those kind of questions kind of come up, and that's why like I'm just like respect to anyone who does it, like because I'm not equipped and I don't have the bandwidth to like think of these like think of what the
Yeah.
best course of action is.
Yeah. And on top of it, it's like volunteer work, so it's like you're doing this just because there's no one else there to that will do it. It's not like a paid position or anything. You're just doing it and then all the stress, all the time that goes into it, and it's like did I make the right decision? And it's like no matter what decision you make, you're going to get backlash for it. So yeah, I could definitely.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
think the tough part is this, like, and this is just from the TO standpoint, like, there was a moment where I stopped just um tweeting just because like again, it's like a volunteer, right? And maybe when you sign up to be a TO, there's some expectation of leadership that needs to happen. But there are days where like I'm just like stressed out from work and just like expectations and just paying bills where I'm just like I would love to tweet about this thing for Smash, but I'm gonna get like 15 replies, and I'm just like, I just don't have the capacity to like ban and block people, like, or think about it, right? And that's, I think, honestly, the opinion of a lot of TOs, and I think that's probably where like they've just gone silent because, not that I agree, not that I necessarily agree, but like if I wrote like, let's say like I was like let's say hypothetically I got all the information out there. I created a Tafo Talk video that was like 30 minutes going point by point, right? Like, and I'm doing it. Like, not only do I have to make the video, but I have to deal with the backlash as like messenger. And like there's two options that I can make, right? As a community figure, is I can make the video and just take like just people who disagree with me and just deal with that. And then I ask myself from a personal standpoint, like, is that even worth it? And for me, it isn't. But I don't know, like I've toyed with the idea, like, do I make a melee on? Do I do a melee on me stream? Do I make a Tafo talk that tries to get all the information together? Like, is it even worth it? Like, what are your thoughts? Like, for like the sake of transparency, because right, because unless somebody volunteers themselves, like like I just shared my position as an individual, right? Like the other TOs, they have jobs, they have lives outside of this. Like they don't want to get like for Dr. Piggy got like when she was the leader of CFC, like, and she made some decisions. People called her workplace and they tried to dox her and tried to get her fired from her job. Like those are the kind of things that we have to consider when like
Yeah.
we make unpopular decisions. It's like, oh, like is somebody going to call my boss and tell me that I should get fired, like over something I'm volunteering for?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah,
but
that's kind of like what I was talking about earlier in the stream. Like a panel, like in an ideal world, you would have something like that that could review these cases. But at the same time, there are going to be limitations. It might not be feasible. Um, it is it it's the ideal outcome that like you have like a panel that is willing to look at these cases. But again, how feasible is it? Um, and again, I mentioned this in a previous video I made. Like, yeah, it might not be feasible, but you know, at the very least, like there could be like more. I feel like there could be more conversations between TOs to like deliberate cases um, at times.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and just like yeah, just like someone could just like initiate the discussion. Like, you know, it could be Mikey, it could be um uh it could be anyone. Just be like, hey, I think we should, or it could just be like if it's like again, like we mentioned, it's hard to get these TOs to unify, but there in this community there tends to be like a domino effect. So if one of the TOs thinks, hey, I might consider having hacks at my event, we'll unban him, and then see it goes from there. Maybe another TO looks at that and like, you know, I'll unban him too, and it's like a domino effect. Um, it feels like that's another issue. It feels like people aren't willing to, I guess you could say, rock the boat. Like they really want to stick to the status quo. I feel like just on a much lesser scale, like with wobbling, like how for years uh it was banned, and then at Evo they allow it, and then suddenly everywhere allows it, and then 2019 some events start to ban it, Big House bans it, and then Smash World Tour gets announced, their rule set is posted, wobbling's banned, and now it's just banned everywhere. Um, so I feel like um just depending like as it pertains to this case, like if there can't be like a panel, like a dedicated panel that handles every case, you know, um if there's a TO that's like, hey, I think we should allow hacks to play, um I don't think they should be pressured to allow them to play, because I know with Smash Factor this year there was some backlash from like Melee Stats, Jackzilla like spoke out about it, and we're like, I don't think this is like cool, and I feel like um that could like dissuade people from speaking like their mind about certain things. Like if they have an opinion and they know like let's say they think hacks should be allowed, but they don't think that's that they can express that freely without like backlash, or they think he should be banned, and they, you know, like you mentioned, there are reasons why these TOs aren't transparent. That's a big thing. Like that's a reason why I made my channel. Like why I
yeah,
like originally I just made like melee tutorials, like how to play X character, how to do this technique. But seeing this community, like seeing like the hack situation is what really made me pivot towards this type of content, because I wanted to be Like an example, like you can speak your mind in Smash and just like say what you need to say, voice your opinion. You could be right, you could be wrong, but say voice your concerns. If you have a concern, say what it is. Um, and yeah,
Yeah.
that's
I think
basically.
the most yeah, I think the most difficult case, right? And like I'm not saying that this is true. Like I would never want to be in the position where someone comes to me and goes like, let's just take that one of the biggest figures like Hungry Box, right? And like let's say this person says Hungry Box did X, Y, and Z, and I'm the person that's attached to like banning Hungry Box, right? Even if it's justifiable, because now I'm gonna have like 1,000 people like harass me into the point where like I may have to be worried about my safety.
Hmm.
Like like even to this day when you look at there are people who kind of still I mean I think the majority have passed, but there are still people defending Dr. Disrespect.
Yeah.
Like and for me it becomes a while like even when we try to protect the panel for privacy over the Captain Zack and Nairo case, and of course the CFC wasn't perfect. I'll acknowledge that. Like all the people who were on the panel got harassed or said like they were part of the CFC panel got harassed on that case,
Yeah.
even if they weren't involved. And like for me, I'm just like this is not worth it. Like even being on a panel. It's like then we kind of go back to square one of hey, is it just a private hey you gotta trust us bro kind of thing, or like you have to go the other end of you have to show who the jurors are of this case, and if they make an unpopular thing they're just going to get blasted and doxxed, and that's like what happened last time.
Hmm.
um and so that's so unfortunately I mean so like I'm trying to think of like what is like a better system, and it may really come down to one person that's willing to do forums like this and just like share what's happening, but then you also have the legal ramifications that could happen, right? Like if I say a person did A, B, and C, and but then we can't prove it beyond the shadow of a doubt, the person could sue me for libel. And that's like so I have to not only deal with lawsuits that could happen if a player is gonna go that route, but I'm also gonna have to deal with their fan base of like I can get doxxed, and like I don't know if they're gonna find my address and come to my door.
Hmm.
Which has happened with the CLG stuff where people gave me death threats where like I'm like okay do I have to move, like people can find my address, like people are saying they're gonna kill me, like I have a wife and kids, like or a wife and a kid, like I don't know, but I'm willing to do it, like do certain things midway to try to help the conversation, I guess.
Hmm. Yeah.
Like so I guess like would that be more helpful? Like I'm just trying to like figure out like because we've talked a lot, I've shared kind of a lot of like why things are the way they are, but I'm also trying to figure out like what are good solutions to these things. In the past, it was mainly on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I will say to the chat like 99% likely it is overblown, but when somebody says I'm gonna kill you and then types your address in and your phone number, then like you kind of have to like look over your back
Yeah.
and go like, hey, it's very unlikely it's gonna happen, but like this person typed my address,
Yeah.
like, and that's a little unsettling.
Yeah. I
um,
don't. I don't know why. Like, what drives people to get so like fired up and passionate to like tell people, like, first of all, to find where people live, like, find their employers, and then like say like, oh, I'm gonna kill you or whatever. Like, I've only gotten like one, maybe two, like death threats ever online, which is actually surprising. But yeah, I could like being like I've seen like people get like harassed, doxxed, death threats, like over stuff that's honestly not that deep. It usually is never that deep to like I'm like vehemently like against like doxing like under any circumstance. Um I just don't get what would drive people to be that hateful to like do that. Which is why like in every one of my videos like I'll put like a disclaimer like hey, even though like I'm really critical of this person or this entity, like you can think poorly of them, but don't like cross the line and do something that's like doxing or death threats or anything like that, because that's not constructive. First of all, it's not constructive. Second of all, it's fucked up. Um, and you're not a fan of mine if you do that. Um, of course, there is going to be like that. No matter what decision you make, like you mentioned, if you're on a panel, no matter what decision you make, you're going to piss off somebody. Um, and yeah, there are going to be people who are upset. You're going to get backlash. And that's one of the difficulties, especially when it's a like a volunteer position. Um, and that's one of the difficulties when it comes to like solving an issue like this. Um,
Yeah. So I guess like one thing then, right, like is like so we have like multiple tiers of information, right? Because we're kind of getting to a point of like, okay, like what information needs to be shared to what party, right? So I think you mentioned earlier, like if someone were to get banned, right? Like you generally want people to know that that person got banned. So like let's use that as a starting point.
yeah.
In terms of uh details of it, right, that could lead to it, like what do you think is like fair game and what do you think should not be shared?
Um, I think, um, well, for one, I think the fact that someone is banned, especially if there's like a lot of anticipation for that player to be there, um, obviously you're gonna get if there's a lot of anticipation for like a player to attend, like say West Balls at Genesis, right? Obviously, if you announce, hey, this player's banned, obviously you're gonna get some backlash. Um, but I feel like um, there's also an outcome where it's like, okay, you don't say anything, and then that player's not there, and people are like, wait, why is he not there? And then you're eventually gonna have to say it anyways. Um, so that's probably a situation where you'd want to at least say that a player is banned. Um, as for like the reasons and the justification and like the information regarding it, like it's obviously a case by case basis. Um, like whether what details can be shared. Like there might be up parties that want to remain anonymous that are involved. There's obviously, like you mentioned, like litigation. Um, but I just feel like you can mention like that a player is banned from an event and share what details you can if possible. Um, like with the hacks ban, right? Like they were able to mention, hey, he's being banned. Um, these are some of the reasons why, and we all agree to this. Um, I feel like I'll go back to the Westfalls example. Um, I feel like that's a situation where that should have happened. Just been like, hey, Westfalls isn't going to be attending, and then share whatever details you can, and just keep whatever's confidential. And if there's like, there's obviously an issue where if you give details, people are going to want more details, and then like you might not be able to share those, so that's always an issue. But like again, if Westfall's attending Genesis, I feel like was a pretty anticipated thing, especially with the release of like my video on the Westfalls, the whole Westfalls thing. Westfalls was obviously streaming like a lot, saying like I'm training for Genesis, I'm super excited, I'm gonna be playing Fox. And then all of a sudden, if we get to Genesis and he's not there, it's gonna people are gonna ask questions anyway, so you might as well say something beforehand to let people know.
Gotcha. Are you just okay? I mean, I think that's like yeah, I think that's a tough part is I think there's always like the 85 like 80/20 rule where like I think like what you're saying in terms of general things has happened in the way you're describing. And then there's like the 20% where something may be slightly different where they can't go with that protocol, right? But then it always goes back to this, right? Like, because where you're going to disagree and where this will always boil back down to is that like 15 to 20, like maybe it's not 15 to 20, it's like 5 to 10% of cases where the TO is not going to share, right? For one reason or another. And then you kind of have to make a choice of, hey, this seems really shady, like what the hell is going on? Or I will generally trust that the TO made the right decision here, right? And I think that's what this will always come back to, right? Especially in the Genesis case, right? Like either you can bring up the questions you do, right, which I think are valid, right? And if the Genesis TOs say we can't share more information, then like we're kind of at an impasse again, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's like where it's like tough. Like I don't know how to solve for that because there's always going to be a group that wants more information, right? Like it came up with the Captain Zach case, right, where now we have to go into grotesque details of like what actually happened, right? Because anything short of revealing exactly what happened in a person's mind is not going to be convinced that Captain Zach should have been banned.
Mm-hmm.
So like, at what point can we take the other side and go like we trust the people that we've appointed to this?
Yeah.
Um, do you have kind of like a line in your head that would make sense?
I could see also like another concern, like if they're trusted individuals and like you know who they are, like that could make it a lot more like if they make an unpopular decision, since they're like prominent figures and like well known, that could lead to like issues with like you mentioned, like harassment, doxing, and that kind of thing. Um, but yeah, like knowing that like the panel is filled with like trusted people that um and also unbiased people, because like that's also a variable, is like again it's a very tight knit like grassroots community. There's going to be like certain friendships and certain that kind of stuff going on, and if that could lead to like a biased outcome on decisions like this. um yeah, having that trust and like being transparent when possible to like also like maintain that trust as well, um is important. um but yeah, like again, a panel like this is going to be tough because it's like there are so many variables to take into account, and it's like we've tried before and it failed for a bunch of different reasons. So it's not, it's ideal, but how feasible it is always going to be um a question. I
Yeah.
know Tech brought up how like Splatoon has basically the same like code of conduct as Smash, and um they're able to apply it. I don't want to say that they apply it like perfectly or hell even good, because I've heard that there are like concerns in that community that they're not applying it like correctly in like every aspect. But he'd argue that they apply that their code of conduct better in their community than in Smash, despite having basically the same like document with all their same like rules and that kind of thing. That they're able to give like definite ban lengths, like for one, instead of like an indefinite ban where everyone's in limbo. Um, so yeah, it could be possible to have like a panel like that can uh be transparent, process the cases, maintain like trust with the public. Um, but yeah, it's one of those things that's like people have to really like put their heads together, and like figure out a way that it's feasible.
Yeah, I think the hard part that you mentioned is like I would like to say that in general, like I'm I would like to say I'm generally trusted, but I also know everybody, right? So that would technically disqualify me,
Hmm.
right? Um, and it's really hard to really define a person within the scene that is well trusted, yet somehow doesn't have relationships with like anybody in the community. Like it almost feels like that's like contradictory.
Hmm.
So I think we kind of have like there is always going to be some degree of imperfection, right? Like or else like if we want someone that's well trusted by definition, they're going to have a lot of relationships within the
Yeah.
community because it's so small, right? Um, like for example, I mean we like I always bring up the Scar example. Everyone generally seems to trust Scar, right? Even
Yeah.
though he knows all the parties and almost he doesn't know top players for whatever reason. He won't tell you who the swooper is, but like but or he's
Oh my
but generally
God,
speaking, he
no
knows he's gonna
way.
have biases, right?
My bish
And
got autism.
so, like, do you like knowing that? Like, what would you kind of value more, their trustworthiness, or like because they're at opposites? Their trustworthiness will come with more relationships. Therefore, you can argue that they're going to be unbiased. So, like, what would you pick over the two if you had to like kind of prioritize one or the other?
Um, I feel like a mixture would be good, but if I had to prioritize like one or the other, um, I'd probably go with um an unbiased group because I feel like trust can be earned. Like you can if you show like you're transparent and that you're unbiased and that you can make like the correct decision more often than not, you can grow trust with the community. Um Whereas I feel like once you have a bias, like it's kind of hard to be fair and that in like like someone pointed out in chat, trust can also be lost. Like if you're biased, like you might be a trustworthy figurehead, but if you're biased, you know, you can start to lose that trust if you're making decisions and people are like, hey, wait a second, this guy's friends with this guy. Like for example, I'll bring this up, like Mikey and Greg Turbo are good friends, so if Greg Turbo doxes hacks and Mikey doesn't do anything about it, people are going to look at that and be like, well, wait a second, he's friends with this guy and he did this thing and there's no like repercussions for it. Like that's kind of fishy. So yeah, I definitely go with the unbiased but not very like prominent or trusted figures. Then yeah, I'd
I
probably
see.
go with the unbiased.
Okay. I'm kind of curious. Like, do you think like just as a aside because it was just brought up now? Like, do you believe that like Mikey is like the spokesperson for the TOs? Like, or is that like the perception that people have?
That's like a perception. Like I mentioned this earlier, that's kind of the perception because he's been like the most outspoken. He's not, like obviously he doesn't, you know, control the community. He doesn't have a say in every single tournament besides his own. Um, but yeah, he has that kind of perception because again, he is the most outspoken against the ban. He's the one that's provided most of the information regarding the situation publicly. So that's why people are like, um, yeah, that's why people like attribute most of the responsibility to him. As far as like the topic of this stream, it was specifically in regards to a post Hacks made where he was basically like, "Hey, I tried reaching out to Mikey and he just ghosted me." And it's like, yeah, I understand that Mikey's not, you know, the ruler of the community or like the sole leader of like all the TOs or whatever. But like the least you could do is just reply and be like, "Hey, don't DM me. Like I can't help you with this," instead of just ghosting him um for basically a year from what it appears from his messages. Of course, he could be like cropping something out. Like we don't know the full context, but the fact that that was like the fact that Mikey's response was basically to be like, I'm not like the authority on every tournament, but to not like provide extra context to those screenshots to me is like that speaks to the situation.
I see. Because I think why I asked that is because I think people use the Smash Europe uh, Twitter. I forget what the exact tag is to put that out there, right? The original ban statement, which I think is on your screen right now, was broadcasted off the Smash Europe TO Twitter, but it seems like people didn't really latch onto that as like a TO entity, and then people were more attached to like a specific individual. In this case, it was Mikey and
Mhm.
arguably Willie P
Yeah,
as the people who are the spokesperson on behalf of the TOs. So it almost seems like there has to be like a person, like a face,
yeah,
because if we created a Smash TO account, right, or they decided to do that, right, it seems like a faceless corporate entity that like, and then whoever decides to be the most vocal out of the TOs is naturally going to be the representative, right? Like
hmm
that's just how I perceive it. Like, so it almost seems like as I'm trying to like figure out like what is the solution to communication, transparency, like there almost has to be a face, similar to like how X, like when you look at like CEOs of companies, right? Like they
Yeah,
have a face to them. Like it seems like it's inevitable that it has to be to get the communication across.
yeah. Because I mentioned before how like Mikey will make a like he made a document like explaining the decision to ban hacks, which is difficult because it's like it's supposed to be reflective of like a group decision, but he's also like giving his perspective and like injecting his bias or like perspective into the document that he's writing, even though it's
Yeah.
supposed to be reflective of a group decision. So when he says X, Y, and Z, I have to then think like, wait a second, is this just you saying this because you think it, or is this reflective of all the TOs who signed the document? So it's also like a tough spot. Um,
Okay, got it. And
yeah.
then because other people weren't, I'm just trying to like figure out solutions here. So just thank you just for answering these questions because I
Mhm.
need to just get 5 checks here. If other people, because I think what's happening, right, um, is one person tweets and I think people use that person as like minion fodder to like be like the shield of like online discussion, right? But because other people are also not talking, then by default, people are going to see, well, Mikey's the only one talking, so therefore he represents the TOs because no one
Mhm.
else is really, I guess, stepping up for lack of better words.
Yeah.
However, if like people tweeted, like let's say people like not just for this case, like people tweeted an announcement, like whether it's here's an update on box controllers or wobbling is banned or this player is banned. If they had a TO account, but they were all in the discussion as it was happening, they shared their opinions, then it would be then you would see more of a perception among the Smash community that this was a group discussion. It's not this one person that's representative of the decision. And now they see that there is a body of people as opposed to Mikey is president. So therefore, he's the one that everyone should talk to, even though it may not be the case.
Mhm.
Like, so I'm just like looking, I'm just taking a step back here just to see like what is like the most appropriate process that like makes the most sense because it's not just you, but there are a bunch of people. There's a perception issue that is happening, and a communication and a transparency issue that's happening. That I'm just trying to figure out, like, what is the best action that people who are leaders in the space could feel reasonably safe to put in without getting dogpiled as the only representative, for lack of better words.
Yeah. I think, like I said before, like if there's like information, like a lot of information on a case, just share what you can, and then try to keep the rest as confidential as possible. As far as like as a like with NYC Melee, how they posted their decision as a group, maybe like I know when they did that, a lot of the TOs and figures in that community made tweets being like, I fully support this decision. Like not just Willie, but I mean Willie made like a went beyond that to make a document like for his personal thoughts. And he obviously titled it like my personal reasons to be like, hey, this is a group opinion. I'm just trying to show my thoughts on this. Um and yeah, like either I don't know, do you think it would be better if it was like the group would just as a group would come forward and be like this is our decision, or do you think it would be also be productive if some of the individuals came with their perspectives? Because I know um like back with NYC Melee, I know Dark Genix isn't part of like the TO group anymore, but they still asked him for his opinion, and I know his opinion was I think he said that it should have been a month ban. Like that's what he voted for, but not a permanent ban. So we could get his viewpoint. We could get what's their name? I'm forgetting. Peach player. I forget their name.
Ryobi, or is there another one?
Ryobi, yeah. Ryobi, I know made a statement. Willie P can make a statement. So do you think that would be like which one do you think would be better? Like them as a group, like as one group, like presenting their opinion, or like on top of that also eat some individuals also giving their perspectives.
Um, so I'm gonna separate this into because I think that there's dynamics at play that are very different for a local scene, and what we consider like the the majors, right, where you're having more cross pollination of like players from all different regions, right? Um, I think with the local TOs, just because you're seeing each other a lot, and by the fact that you guys are talking all the time, because you guys they have to do like weekly or bi-weeklies. Um, I think by default, I'll question why they didn't come to a consensus decision because they're going to be readily available for each other. They're probably texting like once or twice, like multiple times a week on logistics anyway.
Mhm.
I think to me, given that it's within the local jurisdiction, for lack of better words, like that, unless there's something that like crosses a line of violence, like let's say like one kid like punched a guy, right? Then that I would probably notify the other TOs, be like, just as a heads up, this person assaulted. But if there's something within that community, like I would expect it just to be private within that community, and like it
Mhm.
doesn't need to be signal broadcasted unless like it was something like beyond that.
Yeah.
Um, I think the part that's inevitable is I think people are naturally look for a face. I think that's just how 2024 social media works. So I think unfortunately, like just tweeting out of like the nightclub, the New York City nightclub like Twitter, if I think they have one. I think a lot of people are going to naturally bypass it and say like who was responsible for making this decision behind this like faceless corporate account.
Mhm.
So like it's going to be that you're going to have to like share the faces on who made this decision.
Yeah.
So it's a long-winded way to say like you're probably going to have to show a face to it, or people are going to look for the face anyway.
Yeah.
Um, so I think, yeah. I mean, I think I wish I had. I'm just trying to be as productive as possible to process these. Um, and if I like come up with better solutions that people are willing to, get on board with, like I am more than happy to let you know. But these are just inherent issues with bureaucracy and just large bodies of people that have different interests
Mhm.
and may not have every I guess code of conduct related thing as like the top of their priority list. It's like, oh, do I want to go out to dinner with friends or do I want to talk about this? Right? Most would probably want to go out to dinner unless like they're the ones that have the next major coming up where it's more important to them. Okay, so there's like one or two extra cases where I think like I want to hear your thoughts. So this is when I was on the CFC, there was a party that did something wrong, pretty bad, and we told them they're banned, right? What we didn't know was going to happen was the person going public after going banned and just making up stories to the point that what was shared between both parties to us and the reason why they got banned, it was agreed upon and it was understood. And then what they're saying online is that they got cheated. Um, and like at that point, do you just reveal everything? Like if a person's not acting in good faith, even though we acknowledge that this person did this wrong, we all acknowledge it. The victim, the perpetrator, and the CFC people, they get banned. The announcement's made, and then the person goes out there and goes like, "Yeah, I don't even know what I got banned for," and like kind of make up a narrative to like get a rally to overrule the CFC. Like, what do you do in that kind of situation?
I feel like like you mentioned like there's like there might be a threat of like litigation, but at the same time it's like if they're like trying to spin a narrative, like you have to defend yourself. You have to like justify it, like your decision. If they're wrong and they're like trying to spin like lie and spin a narrative, I feel like if you want like again, if you want to build trust with the public, like transparency is a big thing. I feel like you should try to defend yourself and like reveal information if necessary. Obviously, like if there's issues with like litigation and that kind of thing, it's going to be difficult. Um, but yeah, like I feel like if you really want to earn like the trust of the public, you have to be able to like show like, hey, we're making the right decisions. And if someone's trying to say like, hey, I don't know why I was banned or I was banned for a bogus reason, I feel like you do have an obligation to try to correct the record. Because I know if I was in like personally, if I was in like a controversy with someone and someone was lying about me, um, this is just personally like I would try to like refute the claims. Like I've been in like controversies with like, or like I've beefed with like people online before, like people I used to be friends with, and now I'm like they just started like going off the rails and like lying about me. So now I feel like obligated, like even like I feel an obligation to like defend myself, put my truth out there, and explain my side of the story. Um, Even though it might not be worth it, you know, like even though there are some people who aren't gonna believe me, like there's like a reasonable, like the reasonable like group of people who just want to like get to the truth of the situation and will hear you out. Um, you know, you can convince enough people, and now, um, you can try to like show like, hey, we're making the right decisions. This person was banned for a reasonable reason, or like it's justified. Um, and yeah, just transparency, you know. Um, yeah.
Got it. That's like fair. And I think the other part that I think the tough part in all this, and like this is like my just journey, and like I have my baby who's now looking at me really adorably. The tough part is like when we come into this scene, right? Like I don't think many people expect like those kind of things to happen, but like it does, and that's kind of just the reality of things. I think the one thing that I will say is that from dealing with TOs over the years, the reason why they got brought up with TOs, like one, they care, but two, they tend to be very logistical oriented people. They like running brackets, they like running events.
Yeah.
I would say most of them are terrible at social media, PR, and marketing because it's just not in their natural DNA of why they became TOs.
Hmm.
So like the one thing I am pushing for them, because I've worked at CLG, like I've done these things where like I had to be public facing and I've had to do things that like it's not naturally in my wheelhouse personally. Like if I would have probably not done all the social media for on like Melee as Tafo unless I felt like it was necessary. And then one of the big things I'm trying to push is like, hey, like it is kind of part of your job as like a TO. Like you can't just hide, right?
Yeah.
Like what do you think about that?
Yeah. Like that's another thing is like if you're gonna make a decision to ban someone, like you can't it's hard because like you can't have your cake and eat it too, right? You can't make the decision to ban someone and then when they push back on it, not like stand on it or like expect everyone to just go along with it and be happy with it. Like there's a level where it's like you have to you have to like stand on your decision and be like, no, this is our decision, we're correct, here's why. um because it's like on one hand it's like, yeah, you want to just be able to like get along and be able to like run your event, like not have to deal with like the backlash of like making a decision that's unpopular. But at the same time it's like if there's backlash, there's also a level where it's like you have to try to convince those people like, no, we're correct um on our decision. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and like that's part of just being a leader, right? Like in
Hmm.
like I think by proxy, although I don't think the TOs are like the most like public facing or they want to be that charismatic leader person. Like that's kind of what you sign up for by being a TO too. I think the one last thing, like, I've talked to Tech a few times, and I think there are things I wouldn't reveal like publicly in terms of our conversations. I think one of my deepest struggles, right, is and I want to kind of hear your take on it. This isn't me slandering him, but he's made numerous tweets on saying that he wants to burn everything down, like he doesn't care about the Smash community. At the same time, I've seen him write like, "Hey, like they should have asked for my perspective," and I think as a person that generally does care about the Smash community, it's like really hard for me to parse like, well, like you're broadcasting publicly that you want to burn Smash community down. You don't care about it. Like he's personifying like the Batman's Joker. Like he's just like to me, he wants to be an agent of chaos in terms of like what he's presenting and that he doesn't care. But then there are other tweets where he's like, "Hey, like I'm trying to like help the community out." So like I guess that's like where I'm kind of confused on like how do I take that in good faith and go like, okay, like what do I what how do I parse this? I guess.
Hmm. Yeah. Obviously like I'm not tech, so like if he wants to like respond to that he can, but like the way I see it is like he's mentioned that Like, you can agree with something he says because it's accurate. Like, if he has a criticism of the community that's like valid, like for example, some tournaments, like for example, Double Down 2022, he was able to like sneak into the tournament because there was no security. Even though he was banned, he was able to get into the tournament. And he's like, this is an issue in the community. Is there's a lack of security. Like, you can agree with that statement, even though like yeah, it might not be coming from like someone who has the community's best interest in mind, who wants to see the community flourish. Like, you can still look at that and be like, you know what, he's correct. That is like an accurate assessment. Um, as far as his whole like attitude towards like burning the community, obviously he's been banned for a reason that is kind of ticky tacky, or like permanently banned for a reason that he considers like ticky tacky. And obviously he feels jaded by that. And he sees like all the stuff going on in the community, like the hacks ban. Obviously he's not a fan of that. Um, the biggest issue for him was like the Nairo thing and how that was handled. How there was like a whole social media campaign to get him unbanned, and then like 2GG and Collision unban him, and he's like removed from the global ban database. And he's like, "What the hell? No, that shouldn't be a thing. Like, that dude is like, he shouldn't be getting unbanned." And he looks at that and he's like, this there's no reason I should like respect this community. um but at the same time, it's like, I could give you like my perspective. Like, the way I see it is like, there are problems with this community, and if it's necessary that, like, I want to see like Smash like thrive. Like, I like Smash. Like, I haven't played it in a while because I messed up my wrist playing basketball. But I like Smash. Like, I like watching Smash, and I want to see the community thrive. But I'm not just gonna ignore the issues in the community. And if it's necessary that we need to tear everything down and like build it back up from the ground, like, I'm not against that, against that decision, or like that option of just like, hey, if there's issues and like it's not gonna work out, like, if you, like, you might watch sports, right? And you have a team and it's like, this team's underperforming, we're just gonna like fire sale all the players and try to rebuild from the ground up, you know?
Yeah.
um that's how I view it. Like, I do think like, hey, we can bring this community, like, I guess, back to its former glory, if you will. But yeah, I feel like there are just some, like I said earlier, like, there are some concerns that are being ignored, or like people aren't, um don't feel comfortable sharing like concerns that they have. And like, that's why I made my channel, is like to speak on these issues. um so yeah, that's
Yeah.
my perspective. Again, Tech can answer for himself.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, when it comes to his criticisms, like, you can, if he says something and it's accurate, like it's a factual thing, like, even if it's not coming from someone who necessarily has the community's best interest in mind, it's, if it's accurate, like, you can't just disagree with it. Like, yeah, you're right, but it's technical, so no. That's like, you know.
Yeah, I guess like I think because with the Nairo thing, right? Like I think most TOs actually like there was 2GG and like maybe like VG boot camp, but like I think the majority of the TOs still had Nairo banned.
Yeah.
And I think when I watch the tech video, like my impression that I leave with that video is that it kind of makes it sound like the argument is that like Nairo is being welcomed with open arms. He's unbanned from all tournaments, which like wasn't necessarily the case. And I think a lot of people leave that if they don't understand the full context, that like, oh, it's like, oh wow, Nairo's like scot free, which wasn't the case. He was banned, and he is still banned from majority of tournaments. Maybe there were like some tournaments like you mentioned, but I think they ended up
Hmm.
putting up the ban.
Yeah.
And so I think I wish if that were the case, then that, and again, like this may be your chicken and egg. So like, let me preface by saying that is that I think if Tech did a little bit more digging, I think he would have really quickly found that the majority of people actually still wanted Nairo banned, aside from I guess his little clique.
Hmm.
Like
Well,
I personally like never was on the unbanned train, and
yeah.
maybe there was a social media movement, but a lot of tournaments still had him banned.
Yeah. I just, the thing that he points out is like, there was a massive wave of like top players and like influential figures in the community like tweeting out hashtag unban Nairo. Like some of his like closest friends obviously referenced like a 30-page document, including like Alfarad, who I believe has retracted his support. But that's his. It's like Light, for example, like the Fox player. He's still friends with Nairo, still like is on his streams and stuff. Not I don't know if he's on his streams, but he's like in his chat and stuff. Like Nairo's still like welcomed with by like several like top players, which is which from tech's perspective is like, well, this guy's clearly not innocent, and if this was any other player in the community, you know, this wouldn't be happening. He wouldn't be like Mars wouldn't be making like a collaboration with Zero or D1. Like that wouldn't be happening. Like that would just not be a question. But why is it that he's making these like videos collaborating with Nairo and Void? Well, Void didn't do anything, but there was a video that Mars made with like Void and Nairo, like looking at Reddit, and it's like, and it has a sponsor, and it's like, why is this still happening? Like this wouldn't happen with any other player. Yet with Nairo, he gets a mass campaign with all these top players like backing him to be like unbanned. I think it was like #1 trending worldwide at one point. Unban Nairo. And he was able to get like all this money from the community, like 60K in donations in his first stream back. And it's like, why is this the response to him like returning to making content when with any other figure in the community this wouldn't be happening? And then obviously there are some tournaments like Collision, 2GG, who's now defunct, and the global ban database removed him. So like that gives off the perspective that like, hey, this guy's being welcomed back, where like all the top players are collaborating. He's at their birthday party. They're at his birthday party like tournament. These big tournaments are like letting him restream his events, their events. And it gives off this impression that's like, why is he being welcomed back? Like there's this hashtag to unban him. Like people are collaborating with him, and it wouldn't be happening with any other player. So I think that was his criticism with the Nairo thing. Not necessarily that like everyone unbanned him, but
Yeah, I
like
mean, I think
that's the
like
perception if he's being removed from the global ban database, you know, because that's a tool that a lot of TOs tend to use for their bans. Like that's what they use to enforce text ban at some events.
right. Yeah, I mean, I think like what you present is like a lot. Like I would agree with. Like I think that's like, I mean, if that was like the takeaway that I think most people would like get out of the tech video, I think it makes sense. But I think, and I think it's always tricky to use words like all or every, right? Because like I know a ton of people that just were like, no, fuck, like F Nairo, like,
Yeah.
um,
I know
and
Durr made like a public statement like responding to tech like, yeah, I would never let Naira at my events. I know Aiden Calvin mentioned at like I think one of Ludwig's events that was going to be streamed on YouTube, because you know Naira's still banned on Twitch, so it's like even if he was unbanned he still couldn't go to the events because of how like Twitch bans work.
yeah,
um Ludwig's event was going to be on YouTube, so people were like, hey, you should invite Nairo, and Aiden Calvin was like, no. So like, yeah, there's still a lot of, I know like people, there are TOs that don't let him, that have him banned, that probably haven't said anything. But it's also like when there's like this whole movement to be like, you should unban him. Like, notice what's happening with the hacks thing, right? There's a movement to unban him, and then like Mikey will put out a statement, or Willie P will put out a statement like, these are reasons behind the ban. Like we said with like transparency, like if there's this whole movement supported by all these top players, and all these figureheads, and there are events that have unbanned him, it's like the events that banned him, I feel, have an obligation to be like, yeah, no, we don't stand by this.
yeah. And I think that kind of highlights the original problem, right? Because I think a lot of tournaments ended up quietly banning. Like I know quite a bit. I would say that you know there were a lot more tournaments that banned that were still hadn't Nairo banned than unbanned, despite the movement. I think the tough part here, right, is it kind of goes back to that same problem of if there's so much more movement and I'm the stickler, right? Like I'm the target of Nairo's fan base. Like if I decide to go like, no, he's banned, here's the reason why, like then I'm the lightning rod. So like I can see why like people wouldn't want to, and I think you mentioned Dyer and Aiden, and that's like the tough part of like the top player dynamics is like anytime a ban happens or I'm the source of friction, I'm gonna be the lightning rod, and that conscious decision that I have to make is is it worth being vocal about it, even though they're banned anyway? Put myself out there and get
Yeah.
endless harassment, right? And yeah, my stance here is this, right? Like if people want to collaborate with Nairo, or I guess the other side of the coin would be Zero, right? And I can't stop a person from streaming, right?
Yeah.
Like if they want to go to their house, I could say my reservations on how I don't like that this is happening, but like it's within both their both, I guess, let's say Nairo and Zero's rights that they can stream, right? I can't, outside of my jurisdiction. You can even probably create your own house tournament, and by all means, like I can give my grievances over it, but I can't ban, right? Um, so I mean, I think that's just like the largest grievance I have, right? Like if you told me that if the thing that people were concluding is what, like from watching that video, was what you told me, I would say that a lot more people would be in line with being like, yeah, that makes total sense. I think what people take away from the messaging at face value tends to be a little different. I don't know if that's like unreasonable, but that's just kind of my take.
Okay. Um.
Yeah. So I think I went through some stuff. I know like my apologies. This may have been longer than you wanted. But is there
That's
anything
fine.
else?
I really enjoyed this. Like I like being able to just talk to, like, discuss this, because like it's easy to just like sit in an echo chamber and like just spout out like whatever beliefs you want, but like having a discussion where like you can have your beliefs like challenged and like defend them, like articulate them, and just try to find like a middle ground, like even if like one side or the other is not like right, but just try to find like a spot you can agree on. Like this was I think this was a really productive conversation. I really enjoyed having you on.
Yeah, it was great. And like again, like I'm trying to do my best. Like again, like I'm not perfect. I don't claim I am. I'm just trying to figure stuff out in like kind of an imperfect system that we have. I think in an alternate universe where we had, millions of dollars and we can hire people full time, like honestly a lot of these problems would probably solve themselves, like just
Yeah.
with more resources. So amidst us
Mm-hmm.
not having that, like how do we kind of create the best possible systems in an imperfect world? And that's like where I'm just trying to figure that out.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's awesome. It's a little late on my end. I'm gonna get the baby in, but it was really great chatting. You have my Discord. I
Mm-hmm.
tend to kind of be carefree on Twitter, like just because it's just like I don't have the mental capacity to like
Yeah.
go on that platform and argue that much. I might tweet here and there, but if you want to like just talk on Discord, it's a lot more productive for me.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, cool.
All
Well,
right.
I'm gonna head out, but have a great rest of your night.
All right. You too. All right. See you, dude.
See ya.
All right. All right. What do we think, guys? I think that was a great conversation. What do you guys think? Just like to get. It's nice to see like be able to interact with the other side. You know. Yeah, once again, thanks Tafo for coming on. Um, I yeah, that was basically. I've basically covered everything I needed to. Where did we leave off at? Yeah, we were talking about like Greg doxing hacks. You still don't know why he has you blocked on Twitter? That's what happens, Rooster. Why is Greg not banned after doxing hacks, and more importantly, is Leffen okay? Like we'll see what happens with the whole with the whole Greg thing, but you know. If he's not banned, that's a problem. Greg should be forced to serve as Leffen's bodyguard for 3 years to be unbanned. Yeah. Yeah, that's basically all I had for the stream. Just wanted to yeah, basically cover what happened with the Hax's post and then Mikey's response to that. And we got more. We got Tafo on. I was able to talk to him, discuss things. Yeah. Chances you can. Oh, absolutely. I'll compress this into a video, and then I'll leave like the full. I'll do like, if you become a member, like for members only, I'll put like the full unedited conversation with Tafo. Cause I suck at speaking live. Like I tend to just like repeat myself and kind of talk in circles. So I like to compress it down in a video. But if you want the full thing, I'll probably put that on. Is this VOD gonna be saved? That's a good question. Because if I'm gonna put the Tafo combo for members, then yeah, probably not. My apologies to the editor. Dude, I'm the editor. Some of the, I don't think his comparisons were that bad. I think some of them like made sense. Like just taking like one case that he's had to deal with and then trying to apply it to this case. Yeah, I think that's helpful because he has experience being a part of like these panels and trying to deliberate these types of decisions. So like speaking from his experiences, trying to like, you know, how did you get Tafo to come on? I was just streaming and then he was in chat and he asked to come on and I was like, oh yeah. Also, I feel like comparatively with tech, people don't view me as like the boogeyman. I'm like the less edgy tech. Like there are a lot of people who like probably have a problem with tech that don't have a problem with me. Just because of like the way I deliver like my videos and my arguments. Although my videos aren't as entertaining because I don't like inject that much humor into my writing. Like how like I always make fun of tech for this, like how Dr. Allen didn't respond to him but he responded to me. Yeah, that too. I'm also not trying to burn the community down. No, they still write me off as a drama YouTuber. They just say it's a drama YouTuber whose role model is technicals. I mean, yeah, you could argue that, like, comparing hacks to, like, pedophiles is, like, a little, like, extreme, but, like, it's more so how the cases are handled that I'm looking at, not necessarily the cases themselves. Tech is chaotic neutral, you come off more as lawful good. I guess. But yeah, I'm gonna try to work on, like, some more longer videos. The problem is, like, I promised the frame 1 video, right? And now I'm like, I can't make it. So I didn't want to be, like, gassing up the frame 1, because I have, like, a bunch of video ideas planned. Like, I have 3 videos that I want to make, but one of them is chess. The second one is basketball, and the third one is Ace Attorney. Make a frame 2? Yeah, I'll make the frame 2 video. So those are obviously 3 non-Smash related videos. I didn't want to hype up my frame 1 video and then not drop it and then drop something that's not Smash related, because I would just feel shitty. The frame 1 video is currently trapped in another timeline. Yeah, basically the basic gist, it was too fire to release. Let me put myself. It's too fire to release. If I dropped it now, the entire universe would explode. Basically. Yeah, hopefully in the future I'll be able to make it, but there's just a lot of stuff going on in the background where I don't feel comfortable making it. At least at this moment. Maybe in the future. Hopefully in the future. I really want to get it out, because I think that would be just my best video. And but yeah, we'll see. Yeah, as I was always saying, Greg Turbo gonna dox you too. He wishes. But yeah. If you follow me on Twitter, like, I'm not gonna stop, like, dunking on Greg. I'm not gonna stop with that, right? But I'm just gonna, like, if you've been following me on Twitter, you could see, like, all the things I've said talking about him. It's just there's probably not gonna be, like, a full-on video. But yeah, like I said, like, I didn't want to just like, hype up this video, it doesn't come out, and then I drop a chess video. Like, that would just not be... thefranChise bought a frame 1. Let me get it. Look at this thing. Look at this thing. First of all, it feels like a brick, right? It's heavy as... Like, I get that it's in the name, it's the frame 1 heavy, but it's too heavy. Compared to the box, which is over there, I'm not getting it. The box feels like a keyboard. This feels like the entire laptop. Like, I'm pretty sure this piano... Okay, this is heavier. But it's close. This is a brick. It's built like a brick. It's got, like... Yeah. I don't like how it feels. I like how the box is a lot lighter. It feels like a keyboard, whereas that just feels like an entire desktop. You now have a weapon. But yeah, like I was saying, like, I didn't want to just, like, not drop that video and then make a chess video or make a basketball video, because you guys probably don't care about those videos. So it's nice to be able to, like, just talk Smash with you guys, like the good old days. I feel like I've been, like, consistently making content this past like couple weeks, because normally I only upload like 4 times a year, and I'm about to upload like 3 times in the past month. But yeah, I'm gonna start getting back to those. The frame one video is gonna be a basketball video anyway. All the dunking. Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna get back to work on some more like quality, just long form videos that have nothing to do with Smash, because I want to like diversify what I upload. And then what I want to start doing is on either Twitch or Kick, or I might just go on my second channel. I just want to like stream some games, like start a run of Baldur's Gate or something, or like stream like Minecraft. Sus Sundays. Yeah, we could stream Sus Sundays. I know we did like Mario Kart Saturdays, like we used to do those. We might need to get back to that. I haven't touched my Switch in forever. You stopped the frame one vid? Me. But yeah. That's the plan. Yeah, there's like, as far as frame one, like you guys already, if you watch Tech's video and like you follow the stuff I've been tweeting on Twitter, like it should be pretty obvious what the reality is, that situation. And like what kind of person Greg is. I mean, he doxed hacks. Like, that should tell you everything you need to know. He doxed hacks because of a technicals video. See, I'm probably gonna head out. Yeah, I didn't expect to be streaming like this late or for this long, but you know, that was a good combo with Tafo. Let me turn my music down. It's only been 3 hours? Yeah, but I don't normally stream for 3 hours. You know? I usually go for like 2 or 2.5. Opens the frame one, finds sensitive info. Alright. Yeah, that's basically it for today. Gonna chop this up into a video. And Greg gonna dox everyone. Requested a refund. The music, I just went the video 10 hours of lo-fi video game beats. So yeah. All those delivery addresses. Alright, so I'm probably gonna head off. I'll try to stream again this week. Some games, probably either on my second channel or like on a different platform. So yeah, I heard like Kick. I might stream on. I'm not a big fan of like online, like crypto gambling. But like Kick has a very, I'm also not a fan of like the capitalism, like human rights violations that like Amazon practices either. So it's like, Kick who? It's a platform. It's just budget Twitch, run by Stake, which is like a gambling casino, like crypto online casino. And they have like really, it's very easy to get like partnered on Kick. or like get the ability to like you only need to stream for like 5 hours and get like, yeah, we'll see. I could always do like dual streams, you know, like stream on one platform and another at the same time. Or I could do triple stream on YouTube, Twitch, and Kick all at once. Yeah, I don't want to do the gaming streams on here. Like, I want to save these streams for, like, commentary. And then just post videos here. Yeah, we'll see. Alright. So we streaming Sus Sunday? Should we have a Sus Sunday? I feel like we haven't had a Sus Sunday in forever. I feel like we should have a Sus Sunday. The sussiest of Sundays. And Calster's not even here. Hold up. Calster's not even here, and we're talking about Sus Sunday. Alright, so that'll probably be the plan. A Sus Sunday with viewers. Alright, so yeah, that's pretty much everything I wanted to cover. Once again, shout out to Tafo for coming on, being down to have a discussion. And yeah, I'll see you guys hopefully sometime this week.